All right, the time being 6 o'clock, I'll go ahead and bring this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Don?
Here.
Gary?
Here.
Joe?
Here.
Sherry?
Here.
Dan?
Here. And at this time, do any of the commissioners have a reason to abstain for a financial or non-financial conflict of interest?
Have none.
I got a question. At 7 o'clock, there's a den herder that's on here for, is that the city attorney?
No,
Oh, it's not?
no,
Okay.
that's somebody else.
No, I don't have any.
Anything? Nor do I.
I do not.
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 4, approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I was wondering if I can just add a line item, just to real quick address the video concerns that we've had.
Yeah, you want to do that at commission updates? Is that fine, or do you want an actual item? It's just to address a concern, is it correct?
Basically, just to update everybody on it.
Oh, do you want to, where do you want it? Do you want to do that at 12A? It's not going to be something to vote on,
That's
correct?
fine, right.
All right, we'll add that at 12A, and it was nothing to be voted on but a video.
Yeah, I'll just do video update or.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
I would like to add, and maybe it's included under item 19, but I'd like to have a short discussion on the letter to the cable owners that went out a week ago.
I believe we're going to discuss that in executive session, aren't we doing that? That was the plan, we had them printed out, and we're going to talk about that in executive session. If you want to address that when we come out, do you want to do that? Because it would be redundant if we discuss it and then discuss it again and then
Yes.
come back out. So if you want to do that, you could do that when we come out of executive session. Would that work?
Sure.
Okay. Anything else?
Then I'd like to add a discussion revolving around Mr. Swenson's use of media and exposure of the county to lawsuits.
Let's talk about that in the executive session, and if you want to address it after that, we'll do that. Does that work for you?
grand.
Okay. Anything else? Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, item number 5, approval of the October 15th minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Entertain a motion?
I move approval of the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Next item, item number 6, public comment. Thank you. All right, first person for public comment is Howard Cottle. Welcome, sir. Yes.
We're going to have public comment during the road task,
Yes.
so
Okay,
You okay?
so, yeah, that's fine. We could do that. Mr. Johnson, did you want public comment? Come on up, sir, and did you want a time? Give him 3 minutes?
Lloyd Johnson, Baldwin, South Dakota. I chastised Rob Clemish at the last meeting because of the absence, or what appeared to be an absence. I had occasion to visit with the state investigator, and they made the comment to me that maybe things weren't quite the way they appeared to be, and that made me think that maybe I had acted hastily in chastising him. And I called Rob, we discussed it, he explained it to me, and I attacked you at a county commission meeting, and I am apologizing to you at a commission meeting. And I hope that it taught me a lesson to find out the other side first. And I hope you can forgive me, Rob. Thank you.
Takes a big person to apologize. We appreciate that. All right, next person, Bob Blake.
I'd like to abstain later on.
Okay, do you want to be on the second public comment, or do you want to talk on, okay. All right, we'll keep it fit. Anyone else care to make a public comment? All right, this time I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 7, claims.
I move payment of the claims.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I had one question
Yes.
on, I just gotta find it. If I can, there's a $51,000.
Oh, that's data processing on page 7?
Yep.
I called about that, and that was, did you want to explain that, or did you want me to?
That's just our Encode, is that the Encode one?
I believe so, yeah.
The program that we use for all our work is called Encode, and that's our, like, maintenance fee
Okay,
for them, because we can call them whenever we have a problem, so they're our go-to people for
Sure.
if we ever have problems with that program.
okay,
And we do everything on there. We do payroll, we do claims, we do budget, we do taxes.
right,
It's our main program.
okay. Thank you.
All right, any other further discussion? I have a motion and a second, so no more discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item, October payroll. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item, budget supplement. Did you have anything you wanted to talk on this one, or?
Because she had that explanation.
Okay, yeah.
That's all it is.
To the court, safety center, Napa Junction, and the jail building. So, is there any other questions?
What was the Napa Junction?
Did you know that, the Napa Junction? It's the 94,000?
I know I talked to Patty a week or two ago about it, and it was planned.
It's the payment.
It's, yeah,
Yeah.
part of it.
Interest.
Yep,
Yeah. Yeah, from what I understand, talking to her, it was going to pay off the road,
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
is what
That-
I had heard, so that goes to the paying off the road, so. Any other questions on that? All right, entertain a motion.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Motion, I'm going to give that one to Sherry, Don. Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passed. Next item on the agenda, unanticipated revenue. And what is this, CPR money?
Yes.
Moving $2,200 into the ambulance salary line and $1,850 into the supply line item. All right.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passed. Next item, liquor license renewals. I know I had a question on these. Some of them are $1,500, some of them are $1,100, some of them are $500, and that, I guess, has to do with population. And then the $500 one is only beer and wine, beer and
No,
wine.
just wine.
Just wine,
Cider.
okay. Wine and cider, yes. Any questions on that? Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Next item is Christmas holiday request. Did you want to cover this one, Karen? or-
Basically, Patty's just asking for Monday and Tuesday before Christmas because the state is also getting that. And half of our, like Bonham County has decided to, so has Union and Turner. And then the other counties have decided just to do Tuesday. So she's just basically, just asking.
For Monday and
for
Tuesday?
Monday, Tuesday, or whatever you
Sure.
decide.
What kind of traffic flow do you typically have during the last week of the year?
It's actually pretty quiet. I mean, our office.
Well, we
probably
gotta
different
talk
for
about the whole thing.
treasurer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't, speaking with some of the offices, this obviously won't affect the jail and the
And
sheriff's
the-
office.
right.
And if there's a snowstorm, I'm sure Mike will
They'll
still be out,
work.
but they'll be out. So
Yeah.
I believe it's mostly for this,
This building.
Yeah.
mostly.
well, this building and 4-H and
Sec-
soil
yeah,
conservation
yeah,
and those
clerical
ones, so.
cover,
I guess this is a way that, we could just show our appreciation to employees. I can't imagine that's a very busy time of year. It's do a weekend and then come back for Monday and then be off again. Yep.
I did look to see what holidays we do give off, and we give 10 in our manual. New Year's, Martin Luther King, President's Day, Memorial Day, July 4th, Labor Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, and the Friday after Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. And then I went out to the state site, and they give all of those except the Friday after Thanksgiving they do not give, but they add Native American Day. So they give 10 as well. We have already added Good Friday, and we added Native American Day. So we're up to 12 right now that we have given off, just so everybody's got that information.
Sure.
And there was nothing in our handbook about giving anything other than Christmas Day off.
My only concern with like that Monday is if other people have vacation time that week, sometimes they get down here to get bills paid or license plates too, but again, I don't know that all the offices are gonna be busy, but I think,
Sure.
people can always use PTO as well on that Monday.
Well, I think we got a choice to make, I guess, on what we're gonna do. I know with some of the offices, like the treasurer office, using the state system, if they're here when the state's not here, there's really not a lot they can do, from what I've been told, but, there are things I'm sure they could do.
So then, next year, do we give Thursday and Friday off?
It is something that will be reviewed. Well, we're starting the HR firm that's coming in to help us is starting to come into the building and learn. And this is certainly on the list to review the holidays we do give off, to make sure we're up to date with what similar government entities are doing, I guess. But that would be my concern too, is, where do you start drawing the line?
Well, when
at things?
when we did discuss that, the goal was to mirror what the state was in our handbook when it's redone, correct? That's what our goal was?
We've not
Well,
fully vetted that out yet.
So, I suppose this will change, but. Well, it's tough, but, giving a day off gives our employees an opportunity to spend more time with their family and over the holidays, and that's such a bad thing, so.
It's pretty hard when the state is closed.
Well, there won't be closed on all of those days, but, well.
So the state is open the day after Thanksgiving. Does that mean we should be open the day after Thanksgiving?
It's tough.
I mean, it's the
Yeah,
argument
it's
from the
tough.
other side.
It's tough, so.
So I don't feel comfortable giving 2 days off, because that's 3 days in a row, that's 5 days in a row, a weekend and 3 days. And then the next week, you've got New Year's Day, correct? I don't have a calendar in front of me,
Yeah.
but it should be the next, so there's only 4 days the next week. So.
Actually, a good opportunity for people to use up PTO that they're sitting on too.
And, yep, that's why you have vacation days.
Well, I would entertain a motion if somebody wants to make a motion.
Do you remember last year what you did? Because when Christmas would have been on,
On Tuesday, we got Monday off.
you got Monday off. I was gonna say it only moved 1 day. So I would be open to Christmas Eve being off, but not the 23rd.
I'd support that.
I think I'd have to agree with you, because there's a lot of people working, over the weekends and Monday to be able to do some business here with license plates and taxes.
Okay. Is that a motion?
I was throwing
Yeah.
it out there for
That's a good-
somewhere in the middle.
Make a motion to approve December 24th as a holiday.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Right. Next item on the agenda, item number 6, Mr. Woods. Come on up, sir. State your name for the record, and I believe we have you down for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Just a note before I kind of make a comment. One of the comments I was told when I was in your seat, well, out in the audience, is it was very difficult to hear, and I'm going to affirm that because I just want to make sure everybody speaks in their microphone because it is difficult to hear out there. So just a little side note. So again, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, Commissioners. I think I want to talk on just a couple of things briefly. I think we can all agree on the importance of the South Dakota open meeting laws. I mean, we all can agree on that importance. As provided by the South Dakota Newspaper Association, they talk a little bit about what South Dakota open meeting laws are. So I'm going to just read this verbatim. South Dakota's open meeting laws embodies the principle that the public is entitled to the greatest possible information about public affairs and is intended to encourage a public participation in government. South Dakota Codified Law 125.1 requires that official meetings of public bodies must be public and notice to be given of such meetings 24 hours in advance of the meetings. And I got a couple of copies of that. I'm sure you all received those as well throughout your training. So just correct me, am I correct in saying if an item is not published on the agenda 24 hours prior to a meeting stated by statute? Your published agenda item meeting that night it states to appoint acting zoning administrator, Jessica Atkinson? Apologize if I misstated your name. So that was the only published item on the agenda that night. But if we look at the minutes that were published, action item 1945-0C Charlie, the motion was a little bit more in-depth than that.
I'm going to interrupt you quick, Mr. Woods. On the published agenda, I don't see Jessica Atkinson's name on here.
Item number 12, it just says appoint acting zoning administrator.
Correct. And then you added Jessica Atkinson.
That's in the motion.
Okay. But not on the
Yeah,
agenda?
and Mr. Woods, according to the Yankton County agenda policy, which you adopted, all of these copies and support material should have actually been given to us prior so we could have reviewed them. I mean, this is the policy you created, and now you're not following your own policy, so we could have put a lot of this in the agenda in the packet, so
I
everybody
believe
could have
the
had it
agenda
available.
did say item October 1st meeting, item number 12.
Yeah, but you're handing us out all these documents now that we
One's your
haven't had
agenda,
before.
One's your published agenda, and one's your meeting minutes.
Yeah, and it says, in the agenda topic of the policy that you created copies of the supporting material and legal references, so you can continue, but usually that's included, all these items, that we could have had it in the packet. We could have been more informed.
Duly noted. So based on the motion on October 1st, action item 19450C Charles. A motion was made by Lowe, seconded by Swenson, to appoint Jessica Atkinson as acting planning and zoning administrator. That was the only published agenda item. But you added two other items in this motion. One was to appoint Commissioner Healy as guidance, which I believe in the video said advisor. And point number two was to give or appoint authority to the Planning and Zoning Commission to review any and all complaints that are received for zoning enforcement, render decision on all complaints. Those two items were not published agenda items, which, based on South Dakota statute, you need to have it published as an agenda item. There's also another item, Rob had brought in 11A on the Minnehaha County Mental Illness Board. That also was not a published agenda item, but you both took action on it, on all those three items. So my question to you as the commission is, if it's not a published agenda item, how can we vote on that matter?
Do you have anything?
You want to make some comments?
Yep.
Maybe make from here. The one regarding the Minnehaha one, that was a continuation of another prior, one that had been 2 weeks prior, and that was the Mental Illness Board approval, and that was because of that tornado that occurred up there. And the reason it was continued was because they didn't have the contract for us to sign, which provided no financial anything to us. I know I'm telling you what happened, but the answer is that would have been continued, and it should have been listed, but it was continued from the prior meeting, and it should have been listed in the minutes as a continued item. So it should have been contained on there. The second thing is regarding the acting zoning administrator, that's a relatively broad term and a relatively broad thing. So the motions that were made you could argue for sure fall underneath the acting zoning administrator. And you appointed Jessica as a limited administrator. You had granted Joe as an assistant to Jessica because she hasn't been in it long enough. And then you appointed the Planning Commission to do the investigation, which is still all underneath acting zoning administrator. So
I don't disagree with any of those comments, Rob, but as a published agenda item per statute, for the public to be engaged, publicly engaged, we should know what other items may or may not be on the agenda. You're giving authority to the Planning and Zoning Board from the ordinance, but it's not a published agenda item. All the agenda item is to appoint acting zoning administrator. There's nothing about appointing authority in enforcement of zoning. It's just one item. So as a public citizen, read the agenda, I think there's gonna be an appointment of Jessica as the planning and zoning administrator, and that's it. There was no edited information on the agenda, nothing in the packets.
yeah, and Ted, I do understand, and maybe it should have been said a little better, but I do think there's a decent or a good argument. That's really what happened. You appointed Jessica, and pursuant to the state Article 23, it states in there that the zoning administrator must investigate. That's pursuant to the rules. They didn't have to do that. Jessica would have had that authority as the acting, but it was limited, and so they made another appointment under the same article, and it was referenced that they can do the investigation, but they had that authority if they're acting, and the commission does have the ability to appoint under 11-225.
The commission has the ability to appoint that for ordinance, but without it being a published agenda item per state statute, that's where my objection comes into play.
No, and Ted, I do understand.
And just like the Mental Illness Board, I understand it may have been continued, but again, that was not a published agenda item. So there's two, possibly three items that are not published agenda items, which I understand how important transparency is to this commission. I don't see it here.
Yeah, and Ted, in publishing in the minutes does count for publishing. It wasn't listed on the thing, so if it was published in the minutes, it was continued, then that does count for bringing it forward. It could have been listed a little better. And then the argument would be acting zoning administrator, the authority would have been granted that night to the planning commission and then granted to Jessica at the time.
Well,
so that falls within that definition, so.
Well, then my question to the commission is interpretation, but it's technically not, I mean, it's not very clear what your actions were.
Mr. Woods, we have on the agenda tonight Christmas holiday request. We also discussed the 23rd of December and the 24th, neither of which are Christmas. So should we revise this agenda?
That is totally up to you. You
Also
are the
looked
commissioners in
at
charge of the
liquor,
agenda.
liquor license renewals. There was a beer, or a wine renewal on there, which is not a liquor license.
I believe that falls under the same statute,
So-
liquor and wine.
I think we're splitting hairs here, myself.
Well, most of these were all consent agenda items when Mr. Woods was on the commission, and nobody got to even know what they were, so they just got voted on, so. Well, I appreciate your time, thanks
Well,
for
Mike,
coming in.
I'm not done yet. I have a quick question.
I gave you 5 minutes, we got a lot
So
of
I-
agenda items to
Well,
go
if that's the
through.
case, I expect you to give everybody the 5 minutes that are posted on the agenda, and no more than that. Obviously, any kind of there's a question in regards to the commission's actions, we are very limited on what, there's testimony.
How much more time would you like,
I have
Mr. Woods?
just an easy question. How is the commission gonna rectify this motion? Are you gonna rectify this motion?
What would you like us to do, Mr. Woods?
Well, my question is the motion legal?
Which one, the mental illness one, the other, which one,
All-
all of them?
All three of them are not published agenda items. I believe Walworth County, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Walworth County just have an open meeting law violation where the auditor was arrested by the state's attorney for violation of open meeting laws?
And Todd, that could be true. I
It was
don't
just
know.
a headline here about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that could be true. I'm not,
Because violation of open meeting laws is a class 2 misdemeanor. Am I correct?
that's correct.
So my question is, how are you gonna rectify this action when it wasn't a published agenda item?
Todd,
But-
sorry, guys,
Go ahead.
I can address it. It goes to the state's attorney. State's attorney can send it to another state's attorney. I can send it up to the thing. So Todd, if you would like, you could submit the complaint to me, then I could, I better not address it, but I could send it to another state's attorney or up to the attorney general up in here, so that would
I
be
would give the opportunity
something.
for the commission to rectify their situation, so we didn't have to do a complaint.
And Todd, the answer is that, and I'm not speaking for the commission, I'm speaking for myself, possibly the better thing maybe would be to do, just be a little more careful on listing items and making sure it's included and staying within the confines of the question. But again, I think we're splitting hairs just a little bit because the answer to the question is, my interpretation and your interpretation might not be the same, and we're believing we're talking of the same thing, right? I believe there was compliance with that, with the acting zoning administrator, because that's what happened. So, but Todd, I do understand what you're saying, and we need to comply with the rules and we need to follow them. So I'm not by any means saying not to follow them. I'm saying we need to follow them. And if there is a violation, it does come to me, and then I need to disseminate it or give it to the right party so they can review it. Because if there is one, we need to follow the rules and we need to comply with all the rules. And as you will hear later or in the other meetings, I want the rules followed, and that's what we need to do. So, and if we're not following them, there's a complaint, we need to look into it.
So that's,
Mr. Woods, are you an attorney?
no, I'm not.
I guess I would lean towards a more knowledgeable person here than.
And Todd, I'm not going to say that response, but my response is, if there's a complaint, we need to follow the proper channels, and I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to look into it and figure it out
So-
on the time. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Rob. Rob's giving your advice, are you gonna, that's the advice you're taking, I'm assuming, as the commission?
I believe he said if you feel that there's a violation of open meeting laws,
I-
then you go to the state's attorney, and then if there is a,
I
if we
understand
did
the process.
violate it, then he will prosecute
I
us.
know the process, but I
So-
want to give the commission, on the record, an opportunity if they want to correct their action.
So correct the action that was taken? Is that what you're asking us to do?
I'm asking if you want to correct the action that was taken, yes.
Because I think kind of what you're talking about is on the agenda for later. Oh, I got too many agendas in front of me now. Zoning enforcement update. And I think we're going to touch on
Well-
that meeting that was held. So is that where you're getting at?
Well, you gave power to the planning and zoning board to enforce an act and on ordinances, which is within your right. But you have to publish that as an agenda item so the public knows what's going to happen, so they can come to the meeting and have a voice.
Okay, so on that agenda you're talking about, conditional use permit, Tim Binder. What was that about? That was on the agenda you're talking about.
I'm only talking about item number 12.
No, but my point is, what was the conditional use permit for Tim Binder? It doesn't say what it is here.
But is that part of the packet? Because based on South Dakota public meeting laws, A full packet has to be provided. Whatever is your packet is public
Okay,
information.
so your stuff wasn't in our packet for what you're talking about here. So does that mean that we have violated something here?
The minutes and the motion are in your packets. Your agenda was in your packets. I should say, the approved meetings were in the packet. If the commission doesn't want to take action, I'm fine with that. I will sign a complaint, an open meeting law violation, where it can be investigated, but I'm giving the commission the opportunity
And what's your proposal for our taking action on this?
just to publicly, publish it properly, and then take the action, because you do have the authority, as long as it's published through the proper channels. Follow the procedure. That's all I ask.
If we're, advised and it's found that, yeah, we did something in error, no problem trying to remedy that. But you're one person so I think we'll investigate maybe, or see if others feel that way, and if so, then yeah, we would.
So I will, since there's not gonna be any action taken, Ralph, I will sign a complaint. We have it on public here. I will come in your office and sign that complaint, and then you can turn it over to the powers that be.
Okay. And Todd, I do think the primary argument will be addressed here in a little bit. I think so. I mean, you'll see. I mean, if
We'll
you're
find
still-
out. Because, I mean, one thing I would like to ask the commission, and Joe, you made a comment about it earlier, is you're gonna address maybe some of the videos aspect, and there's been a lot of videos of the meetings that are not complete. And I find that interesting why they're not complete.
I think that's way beyond 5 minutes, isn't it?
So am I limited on the 5 minutes?
No.
And are we gonna limit everybody on their time slot?
I just said it's way beyond 5 minutes.
Was there anything
That's
else,
all I said.
Mr. Woods, that you'd like to talk to us about?
That's it.
All right. Well, we thank you very much. All right. Next item on the agenda, item number 9, life pack purchases, Mr. Hawkins. We apologize, we usually have the county employees go first so they can get home, but special circumstances.
Training night, so
Yeah.
it's
All
either
right.
here or there.
All right.
So, anyhow, evening, everybody. As
Welcome.
I talked in our budget meeting, that we probably need to start looking at replacing our current life packs. We've got them, they're anywhere from 7, 8, 11 years old. I'm gonna have one that's gonna be 11 years old in 2020. I reached out to Physio Control or Stryker Medical now that owns, and they kind of came up with a 4-year deal for us to get 4 new ones, and just have to pay for one over the next 4 years. That payment would be $24,700 and whatever it is listed there. There's no interest, no finance fee. The big plus side to this is that we do need to replace these, but we're locking ourselves in at the 2020 rate, if you will, at that $24,700. Each, if we just push it off to just buy one every year, one, we won't get the 24,000 because that's kind of a bulk rate, and 2, there's going to be a 34% increase each year for that piece of equipment.
Did you say 3 to 4 or 34?
3 to 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like,
And so the only con that I could come up with was that we're kind of committing ourselves to a $24,000 budget item for the next 4 years. I put together, kind of listed the stuff in there that it does, and I gave a picture of it in case you had any questions.
It's pretty high
You
tech.
can certainly say it's an expensive piece of equipment, and I would agree with you. What's that? Someone started to say
Looks
something?
pretty amazing piece of equipment, to tell you the truth. The photo here.
Oh,
Looks pretty
yeah.
good.
And it lists out and everything that machine will do for the patient, whether it's a blood pressure or 12 lead, any of that stuff, we can send it directly to the hospital.
Wow. Oh,
So-
that's impressive. So how important
Since they're
are,
having a MI, when we catch that in the field, we can send that EKG 12 lead directly to the hospital way in advance of us arriving, and they are way prepared for that patient by the time we get there.
so how important is this piece of equipment to
I don't
daily
know if we can
operation?
even do our job effectively
Okay.
without it. It's extremely important.
Okay.
So what happens to the old ones?
The old ones, we will, we'll have to, you know, they go back, they get traded in, and then they get sold off and they get upgraded to a, you know, refurbished, if you will, and sold, less, and a lot of times they'll go to like Mexico or, you know, kind of those countries like that.
Is
This
there,
price is the trade-in price though, correct?
This is the trade-in price, correct. They're giving us $5,000 a piece for the trade-in.
So, how many do we have now?
4.
Wouldn't it be better to be on a 1-year replacement cycle where we do one every year for, just every year, you know, you gotta
Yeah,
do it?
that's true, but the thing is that as you do that, then what happens is eventually they're gonna get rid of this Life Pack 12. And then you're gonna have Life Pack 25 and Life Pack 12s, and we do have volunteers that it, you know, we rely on a lot of muscle memory, a lot of training, a lot of muscle memory for those 3 o'clock in the morning calls. And if you start trying to figure out which machine you have in this particular ambulance, it can get kind of confusing.
That makes sense.
Plus the ones we have, probably, 4 years from now, we might not get $5,000 in trade-in, I
No,
guess,
you
too.
won't. They'll go
Would be
down and down.
something to look
And
at.
yet, the other thing is these are, what I have is version 1s, and they're already, you know, ones we're gonna get are version 4s. Not that it makes any difference with what we see, but the components, the inside components are better quality now.
Was this an item that you'd budgeted for one replacement?
Yes, for one replacement.
For one replacement?
Yep,
So it'd be a normal every year?
every year thing that we'd have to do.
I'd move we do the deal.
what's the total cost gonna be?
$99,000.
Yeah, let's see, it's $99,104.40. That's a total 4-year purchase, broken into 4 years is $24,776.10. I don't know why we couldn't round that around, but that's the deal they gave us. And it's all budgeted for, we have that in the budget, so.
Is that your motion, Don?
Yes.
Well, do we wanna see if anyone wants to
Oh.
get some public input?
Well, I'll hold off on my second then.
Anybody care to speak on this agenda item? It says Life Pack purchases, so it could be anything. Life Pack purchases, anybody would like to speak on this item? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice, all right. I mean, that, back to the board, that's a lot of money. You know, have we looked at grants? Have we looked at doing anything like that?
We got 2 or 3 of the initial ones on grants, but of
Okay.
course, that funding has dried up.
Have we,
You know.
that, there are no longer grants available
No,
for
not-
something
not
like
for
this?
No.
Could we, most of the time, we have 2 ambulances out, correct? And sometimes we have 4. Could we do something where we have 2 of them in the ambulances we use most of the time, and then 2 of the better ones we have in the other ambulances? Or is there a way to do something like that?
We can move that kind of stuff around, but,
Okay.
but the thing is that we still need to replace those 2 older ones, because they're getting,
Sure.
you know, it's kind of like the way I'm looking at it, and I could be wrong with this, but they're a computer component. And how long does your desktop work? You know, the last
Sure.
thing we want to do is when we're on a critical call is a blue screen. You know, for the thing just to completely fail. And that's that's my concern always. I lose sleep over it sometimes, but that's what I'm talking. So that's the thing, we can go with, adjusting this. I can work with the guy to adjust this to a 2-year thing, for only 2, but then we're gonna lose the, 0% financing will drop on our replacement costs, or not replacement costs, trade-in costs.
Is there a less fancy version that we could get?
No, they're all the same.
This is our only choice.
Yeah, we don't want to go with less fancy, because this is the stuff that's kind of what is kind of the norm for paramedic level services, to be able to do 12 leads. This thing has an automatic external defibrillator built in it for the basic EMTs if the event that there's not a paramedic on a 4th out call somewhere. They monitor your blood pressure, pulse oximeter. We can even tell when somebody has got carbon monoxide poisoning because it has a setting for that. Things that when we intubate patients, we can monitor how much oxygen and what their ventilation rate is. So this is a very important piece of equipment that we.
Steve, I just got a question.
I know there's.
I agree with Dan. 99,000 is a lot of money, but usually like farmers, you get bulk discount. Some maybe can go together with another county and get a discount with, if you 2 to 3 different counties buy a dozen or 2 dozen of them.
If I can find 2 or 3 different counties that are ready to do this. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, 99,000 is a lot of money.
For the 4, one of the reasons that we got the 0% interest, I'm not, those are all great ideas and great suggestions, but one of the reasons we got the 0% interest was because the striker wants to count this purchase on the 2019 ledger, and if we go over into 2020, then it's a whole nother negotiation period of time.
Can I run this one more time through my mind? That we're paying $24,000 and change every year for 4 years.
Yes.
We're normally already doing that. All we're doing is committing ahead to do that.
Yes.
So we're actually getting even a better deal.
Yes. That's the way I look at it, because you.
Okay.
I'll second Don's motion.
Can I interrupt real quick? I need to surplus out the old ones when it comes time, so can we make that a motion all at once?
It's not on the agenda.
It's on here. It's in my letter.
Rob, can we do that?
I can do that.
Can we do that?
I can come back. We can do it at a different
All right,
time.
it doesn't.
It's not a big deal.
All
Just do
right,
a
all right.
second motion.
All right, we better check. All right. So that we have a motion and a second to approve a purchase of $99,104.40 for life pack purchases.
Yes.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
The only possible flaw I see is if this striker company would go out of business.
Yeah.
No.
That'd be great, because we already got 4.
You may have to repair them, but you gotta trade them off.
So how long can we expect these ones to last then?
7, 8.
7, 8 years?
Yep. 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
That'd be my only concern on the back end is get back into a staggered program, I guess. Would be my only
we can work
concern.
on something like that, yeah, because it just kept getting put off, so I got put it off, didn't think that I was hoping that we were gonna get some grant money rolling around again, but they gave that money to other people.
I got a hypothetical question for you, Steve. Say for some reason in the future that Yankton County is in big trouble, and we have to sell the ambulance service off to, say, Avera or Sioux Falls or something. Then what happens to that contract? Are we still committed to pay that 20?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
Huh? If you sell it off, you'd have to sell off the whole,
Debts
you have to take all your expenditures and all that stuff and add those up, and you have to pay those off. Just like you would at your house or whatever.
We'd still be committed to paying that every year then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
No.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion pass. Take very good care of them.
Oh, we will.
Yep.
We will.
All right.
When we take them out on the boat, we're gonna build a special life
All right.
vest for them.
Now, do we want to do the motion to surplus the
Yeah.
other four now?
Sure, you could.
It's not on the agenda, it only says life pack purchases, but
Okay.
we're gonna do a motion to do them surplus, and that's okay to do that, Rob? We're gonna get, okay, all right. Okay, all right. So now we're gonna discuss surplusing the life pack purchases that we have, and the cost is $5,000 each for those, for a total of $20,000?
Correct.
Okay. Does anybody from the public care to speak on that? Going once, going twice. All right, back to the board. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
No.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion passed.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, okay?
All right. Hey, when you do get those in, come in and show us one of those if you wouldn't mind.
You betcha, I
All
will.
right.
I'll even
Show it.
hook you up and
Yeah, shot me? All right, okay. Okay, that sounds good.
Line up.
Yeah. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 10, entrance application for Mr. Stanley Cap. Mr. Solacek, welcome.
I guess first thing, I just got entrance application for Stanley Cap. It'd be, if you guys are familiar with 435 in the gun range on the Utica Road.
It's not cap, it's chop.
Well,
Spelled like Cap.
You knew
Sorry.
that, didn't
Yeah, I
I did know
apologize. Yeah, it's right, Joe.
But yeah, it's right across the road, right from the gun range there. There is an existing approach farther north. It is too narrow for trucks. Where he's placing this one now is on top of a knoll, so I am not requiring him to put a culvert in.
Okay.
Move approval of the,
Okay, well, let's see if there's anybody who wants,
yep.
anybody from the public want to speak on this? Going once, going twice, okay. Back to the board. Did you have a motion, Joe?
yeah, I'd move approval of the Stanley Chop application.
Second.
I'm gonna give that to Don this time. Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. All right, next one, is contractor bid for preservation grants.
I guess what I'm looking at is to go out for approval to hire a contractor, or to go out to bid for contractor for the preservation grants for next year on the two bridges that we have grants on. Be the one approximately 3/4 of a mile north of Utica, and then the other bridge would be on 448 south of 301, about half a mile.
Bridge improvement grants.
Yeah,
Anybody?
just looking for approval for.
Okay.
Okay,
to go
so,
out to bid.
so we're going to be clear, this is just the preservation, so it's not changing the load limits, because I
Right.
was asked that, so it's just the surface coating.
Epoxy seal and any spalling, they'll do their test to where if they find any hollow spots, they won't jackhammer them out and repair.
Still a 80/20 cost share from the
Right.
state, correct? Yep. Anybody from the audience want to speak on this? All right, going once, going twice, okay. Close it back to the board. Any questions from the board?
What are current load limits on those? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't have, the one on 448, I recall, if I remember right, there is not one on there, but
Okay.
north of Utica there is.
There is.
I want to say 2436. Don't quote me.
I guess my only point is concerning the upcoming road task, is that gonna become an issue?
That was addressed in the plan,
I assumed it was, but.
yes.
Okay.
All right, entertain a motion.
Approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. All right, next item is a force account agreement for 2019 flood.
Pretty much what that is we have FAS, federally aided roads in the county. The federally aided paved roads that we have in the county, FEMA will not pay on them for repairs. It goes through state ER funds, emergency relief funds. And on that first sheet there, you can see all the listed damage sites that we have for reimbursement on the FAS route. Adding them up, that comes out to $188,000. I guess the main thing I'm looking for is signatures for the agreement, I guess.
So that 188,000, that's coming toward us, to fix these roads
Right.
from the state? Can we get more? Yeah, we appreciate your
Well, I guess
effort on
that
that,
is
so.
up to, that is not
That is up
the
to.
exact number that we will get, that
Okay.
is up to.
Is that an
And I
80%?
can't go over each, like
Okay,
3A
yep.
is $5,425, I cannot exceed that.
Is that what cost share is that? Is that with the state? Is it the 80/20 or is
I
it something
think it's
different or?
90/10.
Oh, well, it's better. All right,
It,
we're gonna hold you to that.
we have FEMA and this
Yeah.
going on, I'm sorry.
All right. Next time you come back, clarify that with us, but we appreciate that.
So we need to approve this and give you a signature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody from the audience want to speak on this topic? All right, I don't see anybody. Back to the board. Need a motion to approve.
Move to approve the force account agreement for 2019 flood.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Next item, approve state bid for riprap.
In front of you there, I have the approved contract for this last summer with the flooding event over in Union County, South Dakota Highway 38. Had flood damage done to it. I guess I am on there. There's Class B riprap, that's the main line item I'm after, placed by Pullman Excavation for $44 per ton placed. I'm looking at having Mike Pullman, Pullman Excavation, do the repair work under Fleets Bridge. There's a lot of scouring issues going on there.
Yeah, do you want to explain to the public what's going on with that bridge so we're all on the same page?
Well, in the past, everybody knows about the scour issue on the southeast corner. It didn't get any better over this, between spring and this last event. Over this last event, the west side sustained damage to both north and south side of the west abutment. So there needs to be riprap done there. Directly below the bridge on the east abutment, there needs to be some done there, and then along with the scour in that southeast corner, it has moved probably 20 foot closer towards the bridge abutment. So something that needs to have, it has to get addressed this year regardless. Do have the crew out, we're working on the scour issues on Jamesville right now, and then next when that's complete, we'll go to Stone Church. Them are smaller projects. I feel comfortable doing them. The big project, it's going to take more time, more trucks and everything. So,
Will that bridge be closed down when we place this riprap?
at Fleets Bridge, yes, we will have to close it. It'll be just during the day. We will open it. It'll be open in the morning and the evening.
Okay. It's not on the agenda, but Jamesville Bridge, you want to give us an update on that quick?
Jamesville Bridge, talking with Clark Engineering, they're coming up with cost estimates, should have them by Thursday. Cost estimates for repair, and it sounds like there'll be two different options that we can take on that, on the repair work. I asked also on what we're thinking on timeline on repair, and it's hard to say right now. We have to Gotta get a hold of Don and Sherry, have them come to the office, discuss our options, and then it's you guys, and then we have to go out for bid for contractors.
It'll be closed for the foreseeable future, though,
Well, just talking with Adam, we can hope for December, but
okay.
gotta keep the ball rolling, I guess, is the
Okay.
biggest thing.
All right, anybody from the audience want to speak on approve the state riprap bid? Come on up, state your name and go ahead. Welcome.
Ray, I wanted to ask a question. Wasn't about 4 years ago, there was a substantial riprap placed on the north side. Is there any
Ray, can you speak into the microphone?
indication, did that hold, did that move in this whole process? Do you know anything about that?
They, I don't know if I'm gonna say it right, but they used, I'll say sonar to map the river bottom, the contour of the river bottom, and as of right now, it looked like everything stayed in place. The only place that may have lost a little bit of river bottom was on Stone Church, but nothing major.
Okay. All righty. Well, we appreciate all your effort. Any other questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Solacek?
I have one quick one. There's always concern that when we place riprap, we're creating a dam, especially on the gym.
Right.
There's some controversy and conflict there. Is this, I can assume Clark has spec'd out the tons and location to put this, or how do we site the rock?
That's just,
Or are we just done?
for placement wise, I will say we are not going to create any, we're not gonna slow the river down, because we're mainly armoring the banks.
Okay.
Where this is all being placed. Can we get an actual estimate on what it's gonna cost? Well, we kind of found out on the Jamesville Bridge yesterday, the scour hole that we were trying to fill, we couldn't reach it with the bottom of the excavator, so.
That's bad. Yeah, that's.
I was thinking, day and a half project. Well, it's looking like it's probably gonna be 3.
Wow.
Possibly 4.
Wow.
We have material protruding out of the water now, so that is a plus.
All right.
We aren't building any liability for the railroad bridge.
All we're doing is protecting our bridge.
And that's within our rights.
Right, because right now,
The railroad won't be able to sue us for,
no, we're not changing anything other than we're armoring the bank, like on the west side. Are we gonna add material? The only material we're going to add is riprap, and that is, there's, say approximately 5 foot of the bank disappeared, so we're not really altering what has already been done.
You're not out dumping it in the middle of the
Right.
river.
And then along with that southeast corner, well, you guys seen that big scour hole, we're just trying to protect, because right now so last year, the scour was, I would say, right on the edge of our right of way. Now it is halfway through the ditch bottom. So we've lost that much already, so.
We appreciate it. I believe we still need a motion for approve the state bid for riprap at $44 per ton placed. That includes trucking and everything, right? Okay, so I would entertain a motion on approval of the state bid for riprap.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed.
You guys want a little update on the whole department quick?
The whole what? Yeah, sure.
We're,
Give us a 3-minute version.
I'll give you a 50-second.
Okay, better.
Last week, we were hauling gravel, mowing ditches, blading, small dirt work projects last week. This week, hauling gravel to the east side of the county. We should be done with gravel on the east side of the county this week. The reclamation will be starting here possibly Thursday. The mill's gonna move in and start on 449. riprap on the Jamesville Bridge, we've been working on that. Blading, making sure the windrows are gone and pulling ditches, so. I guess that's the excitement.
For snow, huh?
Is Fisher and Marquardt, are they starting to replenish our gravel supply?
Marquardt's is probably almost done. Fisher's, that's where the crush will be going next, so. And we are, at the end of the day, so the blade operator has time to get in, I have the guys replenishing our stockpile at the shop. It's only a round or two at the end of the day, but little by little, we'll have a decent pile for, hopefully, we don't have to use it next spring.
Right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Next item on the agenda, item number 11, agreement for the provision of library services. Mrs. Schmidt, welcome.
Good evening. I sent along in the packets a new proposed agreement for the provision of library services for 2020, and some of the main changes are indicated that the funding from the county has gone down. We requested $24,000 and you guys have approved $15,000. So that change is indicated in the agreement. And then there's also going to be an increase in the price of county library cards. So that's for anyone in Yankton County, but outside city limits. They are currently paying $5 a year. And our board has approved to up that to $20 per year, just to kind of help offset that cost. I have a little infographic with me, if I may pass that out to you. It just has some stats about some of the services and programs we offer at the library. In 2018, we offered 437 programs at the library, so that's more than one program a day. And almost all of those were free and open to the public. So I think truly the library helps improve the quality of life in our community. And I do appreciate the partnership that we have between city and county, and I hope that partnership continues and improves. Do you guys have any questions for me about anything?
No. Any questions for anyone on the audience for the library? No? Well, we appreciate everything you do. I know our kids really enjoy the library, and you have a lot of great programs. So you need a motion to approve the agreement for library services for 2020. So I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion? Although, roll call vote. Let's do a roll call vote on this one.
Dan?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd also like to invite, if any of you ever want a tour of the library, or if you have any questions for me, to just reach out, and I'd be happy to help you with that.
It's a pretty
Thank
good
you.
tour. I've been on it.
Yeah. How much time do you need to set up?
Me?
You want to take?
I'm going to speak from the podium.
All right.
So we don't have any overheads. This is our,
Anybody need a break, or do you want to go? What?
I'm fine.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, item number 12, Road Task Force Report. Commissioner
All right.
Loest.
we're 20 minutes behind, so I'll try not to do what I usually do, which is talk forever. Let's see, the map is behind me, and we really don't have a good place to put it, so hopefully everybody looked at it before I am now standing in front of it. The purpose, and I'm going to read the entire purpose of our final report. The Yankton County Commissioners are concerned that available highway funding is insufficient to maintain all of the currently paved roads in the county. This task force was developed to evaluate the creation of corridor roads in order to prioritize funding dollars and to identify roads which may be reverted back to gravel surface. So we had nominated 5 members of the task force, and I am going to name them because we really appreciate all of the time that they put in. So there's Bob Chop from Utica Township, Roger Farrenholz from Ziskoff, the south portion, Daniel Grant from Vollen, Don Kettering represented Utica South. I am from Central, Tim McManus from Marindal, Kent Metler from Odessa, and of course, Mike Solacek was our highway superintendent who attended the meeting.
Sherry, could I have a second? If you were a member of this task force, would you please stand up? I know there's some of you guys in here, so you're not getting out of there.
Two of you.
You too. Let's give them a round of applause.
Give you a
Thank you guys for putting forth the effort.
So we had 2, 4, 6, we had 8 meetings. One was out at the Mayfield Bar, one was at the Lesterville Fire Hall, and we had one in the Gayville Community Center. And we really felt those were probably the most productive meetings that we had because we had a lot of interaction with the public. And the goal of those was to really see what they wanted. Because we would go to the meeting with, this is where we're at so far, poke holes in it, suggest changes, etc. We did have 2 people from South Dakota Local Transportation come down and talk to us. One was Chuck Fromelt, and the other was Andrew Peterson. So the next portion is definitions. So, and I am just going to touch on this briefly, but I'll say a little bit more later. So we had essentially A, B, C, and then we had C gravel roads. So A and B roads are essentially the same. Our goal is to finance every 5 years they get chip sealed. That is on the very good end of chip seal. We've been told 5 to 7 years is what you want to maintain. Our goal was shoot for the stars and plan for every 5 years. So what's the difference between an A and a B road? If for some reason we would hit the lottery, jackpot, federal government, state government, or a tax levy, those extra dollars would be put into the A roads. They would not be put into the B roads. So what it does is it keeps your feet to the fire, and to say this is our plan, it makes your decisions easier when those dollars funnel into the county. So that is essentially the difference between an A and a B road. And I'm going to step back here. On this map, A roads are blue and B roads are orange. So, and I'll try to talk loudly. So you can kind of see where the roads are at. We tried to spread them out. So it doesn't make sense to have 2 A roads a mile apart, if you will. So that was all part of the discussion. Everything is in pink is a C road. So C roads are going to have a longer maintenance rotation plan. So instead of 5 years, maybe it's going to be 7, 8 years. If we have a rough year, maybe that becomes 9, 10 years. So those are the roads that we sacrifice first when we have to make tough decisions. So at least we're all on the same page when we come there. So when you go to the next page, I am going to read off the goals that we essentially set was public feedback, current condition, traffic flow, state roads, how close are they to state roads? We are fortunate to have as many state roads as we do. Bridges, are they in good condition? Are they underrated for truck traffic? Redundancy, again, having paved roads a mile or 2 apart makes it kind of challenging. Alternative routes, spring load limits, neighboring counties, so do these roads connect to our neighboring counties in the same manner, and then small towns, and of course, most of the folks work in the city of Yankton. So trying to make sure we can funnel folks to their job as quick as possible had to be part of that discussion as well. What we did not do is we did not evaluate any county gravel roads or any secondary gravel roads. And by secondary roads, those are township roads in the county's care. So any unorganized township would have a secondary gravel road. We didn't talk about those roads at all. We didn't talk about converting any of those to minimum maintenance or no maintenance. We didn't feel that was part of really the corridor road system. So a little history. July 15th of 2015, the county passed a road tax levy at 90 cents per thousand. It went to a vote and it failed. So after that, in 2016, County Commission appointed a task force. Don was on that task force, I was on that task force, and Bob Chop, who is on this commission, or this task force, was also on that one. So I'm going to read their objective was to review the current condition of the roads and bridges and to evaluate possible solutions in maintaining or improving the areas. So their focus was a little bit different than our focus that we were assigned with. But so their recommendations were move road and bridge maintenance to higher priority in the budget, establish criteria for improvement and maintenance in the county 5-year plan, track expenses and revenues in the unorganized townships, inform and educate the public concerning roads and bridges, and then the last one was one of two, was to do a 30-cent per thousand tax levy and a $1 wheel tax on 4 wheels, or to go for a 60-cent per thousand tax levy. And they did say a sunset clause of 5 years should be implemented. So on July 15th of 2016, I don't know why I highlighted that. Anyway, the county commission, it was July 15th of 2016. The county commission passed a resolution for a 45-cent tax levy and also a $5 wheel tax on a maximum 12 wheels. So those two were passed as a result of the last. That was also petitioned to a vote, and both of those failed. So here we are, June 4, 2019, County Commission appoints a new task force to study this again. So that gives you how we got here. I thought it was important to include that so we know at least what has happened. So we considered the current road conditions, traffic count. Mike mentioned it earlier, federal aid, secondary highway system roads. So he talked about the funding that goes to those roads. Road information from other counties. A key statistic there is how many paved miles per square mile does each county have, and that's all in the appendix. The other reference was the 2015 Yankton County Master Transportation Plan, which was a good resource. So I'm not going to go through all of the public input that was included in the front page of this report, except, and I think we'll have someone who's going to speak on this tonight, 309th Street, which is Old 50, a request was made to list this as an A road versus a C road, which is what it is on the map today. Excuse me, so that request was made at a later meeting. This same request was made based on current road base and the traffic counts being on that road. So in our discussions, this is the chunk of road that this person had requested remain an A chunk. One argument against or for why we have it as a C road is a lot of the traffic that uses this is coming from this area. They're coming down and over. And so our argument was to try to always funnel as many people to the A roads as possible. So if you took here, and if they just stay on this road, they can come down on an A road and over
Sherry,
on an A road.
I don't even understand. I don't know how everybody else is, but can you number the roads? Which road you're talking about instead of just
So
pointing?
they can essentially stay on the Vollen Road, head straight west, come down on 448, hit Old 50, and come into Yankton.
Okay.
So I'm not going to go into too much detail. I promised you I tend to get wordy. So, but I did want to mention that is one of the concerns that was voiced, of which we didn't change the plan for. So the map is out there, so let's get to this back portion. So funding, we did put this in there. We did not specifically talk about a funding strategy. We felt the county commissioners should have that task. That wasn't on us, but I did list in the report that the property tax levy that you can use is 10-12-13. Now, we need to make a correction to the report, and I apologize for that. After I submitted this, I got to think, and I had just looked at our total valuation. We're over $2 billion in the county. So what happens is the law limits our tax levy to 60 cents maximum. So they have less than $1 billion is, I think it's 1.5, so $1.50. Between $1 billion and $2 billion is 90 cents. $2 billion and above is 60 cents. So that is something, and I apologize. I should have thought of that before I submitted it. But that needs to be changed in here because we can't levy 90 cents anymore. We can only levy 60 if we choose to go down that path. And then, of course, the wheel tax, we can go up to $5 on a maximum of 12 wheels, which is $60 per vehicle. So one thing to say about that wheel tax is some counties are getting a little creative. The bridge improvement grant, you get extra points if you have a $5 wheel tax. We have a $4 wheel tax. So we're not getting as many points as maybe we could. So some counties are actually going to 5, and then instead of, say, charging for 4 wheels, they charge for 3. So you're kind of losing a little money, but you're gaining points on bridge improvement. So you hate to say they're, you know, being a little shifty about it, but they're playing within the rules, and if that's how the game's going to be played, we need to consider playing that game as well. The last thing about the funding that I do want to mention, and I think it is a big thing, the Safety Center debt expires in December of 2025. If you all go home and look at your tax bill, there's a line item on there for debt service. And right now, the county's paying roughly $620,000 a year for that debt. So in 2024, there's a $620,000 payment. So in 2025, it drops down to $283,000. After that, it's gone. So sometimes when folks are already used to paying that amount of tax, possibly shipping the focus of those dollars could be to our advantage. The downside is we've got a few years to get there. But I think it's important to have that as part of the discussion. So let's get to our recommendations. I'm doing darn good.
I got just one question.
Yes.
When you said that there's a limit to the 12 wheels on the wheel tax, correct?
Yes.
Well, how come we're not taxing the 18-wheelers and the 26-wheelers? How come those are the ones that do the damage to the roads and the bridges?
Hey, you're talking to the wrong person.
State law,
That's the
Gary.
state legislature.
So it's state. Okay, I want people to understand that.
That is a
it's not
state law
us.
that
it's
we
the
are
state
limited.
that's at the
Exactly.
limit. Okay.
Yep, not every county has a wheel tax, and if you don't have a wheel tax, you can't get bridge improvement grants. So we are fortunate to have that. Specific recommendations. So the Road Task Force recommends the Yankton County Commissioners take the following actions. Number 1, adopt the Yankton County Road Task Force categories map, that thing that's standing behind me. Number 2, utilize this map to develop the Yankton County 5-year highway plan, which is updated yearly, to allocate unanticipated federal or state funding, to prioritize bridge replacement or elimination, to respond to natural disasters. Number 3, if the County Commission determines that collecting additional funds from taxpayers is justified in order to upgrade an A road, we recommend these restrictions be implemented. A very specific project is identified, including complete cost estimation. B, funding collection is limited to 1, 2, or 3 years, depending on the size of the project. C, this additional funding, whether it's a tax levy and/or a wheel tax, expires at the end of the project. Part D, no part of the normal highway budget is altered. Number 4, the task force recommends the first A road project to receive consideration for upgrade is 444th Avenue, which is Walshtown Road. Number 5, the corridor roadmap should be reviewed every 5 to 10 years to ensure it aligns with business development and addresses changes in funding sources. So that, and I know I sped through it. Now tonight we cannot take action, even though it's on the agenda and it's in your packet. There is a state law that says you cannot take action on a task force report at the meeting it's presented. You have to wait till next time, just so we don't get in trouble.
Make sure it's on the agenda.
Yes. So if there's any questions, I've used about 15 minutes. Don, did I miss anything? I know I spoke awful quickly because there really is so much information, and I would encourage you, this is out in the packet, and after it's approved, if we do approve it, and I will get the changes in the law in there, it should be posted out on the highways website. for people to refer to.
It's in the agenda packet for this
It's
meeting.
in the agenda packet.
online.
Just remember that one law needs to be adjusted because we have grown too much.
Did you have?
The only thing, or not the only thing that I wanted to say, but the first thing that I want to say is, I don't know of any commissioner
Thank you.
that has dedicated more time and done more work at a, excuse me, at a high level than Sherry has on this. And she's just done a wonderful job. She's been up for every meeting, answered questions, got back and provided people with answers for questions that we couldn't answer, and she's just done a fantastic job. So
Had lots of help.
yes, but
Any questions from the audience? Sir?
Did you want to speak? Come on up to the microphone so everybody can hear you, Bob.
That's never been a problem for me.
Yeah. Welcome, Bob.
My name is Bob Light. My question I have is the state's talked about doing work on Highway 81 plus 46. Will any of these roads be changed when they became a detour road? Because obviously people, I go to Springfield every day and it's been a pain this last summer on the work they're doing. So your side roads, like the Washtown Road, Vollen Road, and all those, are gonna see heavier traffic with people trying to avoid those spots and jumping back and forth. Just wondering if we're gonna have consideration for those roads that don't count now, but will when that traffic increases.
Yep, and that was voiced to a high level during all of the meetings, and we have talked to the state about potentially doing the evaluate the road before, use the road, evaluate it after, and fix the damage, and there's not much interest for that. So we have been told that the detour roads are not going to be designated in Yankton County, they're going to be designated on state roads. And so taking that into consideration, I would highly suggest we don't do any upgrades to anything, any extra money before all the work's done. Now, one road that will be reclaimed next year, this is 294th, and it's tough. If you drive in that area, you're doing this number. It's going to be reclaimed next year, which is turned to gravel. It will not be paved again until after 46 is done, because there's no sense going the next year and putting chip seals and making it all pretty and have all these trucks bypassing 46, because we all know they're going to do it. So sadly, the folks in that area are going to have to live with that being a nice gravel road for more years. But I think in the end, and folks in that area kind of saw the logic in it, they'd rather have a road paved and then not be abused so quickly. But we are, Bob, taking all of that into consideration. And so if we're gonna spend extra dollars, we're gonna make darn sure that either it's after the state has done their stuff and left, or it's a road we feel wouldn't be used for that type bypass. But once you make something shiny and pretty, everybody wants to drive on it, don't they? So, other questions? Howard, did you want to get up and speak? You bet, come up.
Welcome, Howard. State your name for the record.
Howard Cottle. And if I could, I just had a 3-page handout for the commissioners.
Sure.
If I could do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman Clemish, and thanks for listening to me, commissioners. Just wanted to extend, thanks to you again, Sherry, and your task force for doing the job that you did do. A lot of efforts and time that took place there, and it's not always easy, but you seem to handle it really well. So I commend you and your team. However, on my first handout, it's the first page. The latest decision by the county task force was to label the Yankton County highways A, B, and C. And on that thing I gave you, it's blue is A, and the yellow is obviously the B roads, and then the pink is the C roads. I respectfully disagree with the 3-mile stretch between 448 and 451 being labeled as a Class C road. And that road is this one right in here. South of Allen, turn west, head towards Yankton on 309. It's circled in black on your first page. But it is one of the strongest bases that we do have on 309, and the traffic count is very high. I was unable to attend the September 9th Gayville meeting where maybe this discussion took place, but I did hit the last meeting on September 30th to kind of address my concern about that portion of 309. And Sherry, you can correct me if I'm wrong about, but when I was kind of on the call after I heard that maybe 309 was gonna be classified as a C, you kind of gave me an illusion that, hey, that was a tough decision from the task force. It was not unanimous, and you know, so there was a lot of thought and process that went into that, but it was very close as far as the vote on that. And then the other thing, I kind of was thinking that you gave me the illusion that the road counts weren't even checked during that portion of the meeting, and until I shared it with you in the committee that those road counts on page 2 are quite high. And then the final thing was the September 30th meeting where you did have Andrew Peterson, who is the worked for the South Dakota Transportation Assistance Program. First thing out of his mind was he stated that, you know, highways with strong bases like 309 are by far the cheapest to maintain. So I thought that was interesting as well. The second page obviously is the DOT for Yankton County, where they did the traffic counts. That count was the latest one that they have. It's 2014. I'm thinking it's probably proportionally the same today if they would do that count again, but those are the counts. It's on the webpage for South Dakota DOT. It's kind of interesting about it. They did 90 points of interest in Yankton County, and you can see most of the activity is in that southeast corner of our county. So what I did is I took page 3 and kind of blew up the southeast corner of Yankton County where the highway counts show. You know, Deer Boulevard is number 1. And number 2 is the Dam Overlook Highway. But what gets interesting is the 4th largest count is just west of 448 on 309. And the 9th largest traffic count is east of 448, the area of which we want to classify now as potential C road. I thought that was interesting. And then the 6th largest traffic count out of 90 comes straight south out of Allen on 451. So I kind of asked, why would we change that class on 309 from an A to a C between 448 and 451 when it's one of the strongest bases we got, and according to Andrew Peterson, make sure that we take care of the good solid base roads because they're the cheapest ones we can do. Number 2, that section of Highway 309 that we're talking about is the 9th highest traffic count recorded by South Dakota DOT for our county. And then, you know, it's the traffic that's telling us where it wants to go. Traffic coming from Irene, Wakanda, Gayville, Wakanda. No, 309 is the fastest route to and from Yankton, to the middle of Yankton, and to the north part of Yankton. And it kind of makes little sense to reroute the traffic, say on 305, like maybe you're suggesting, to go back a mile, back over 448, and then come back down to 309 and gather your way back into Yankton. To me, it's just who goes north if you really want to go south. And then finally, you know, I just like to thank you for listening to me and considering that the work you did on the task force. We really appreciate that, but these 3 miles of Class C road on Highway 309, they really deserve to be Class A all the way to 451. And that's all I have. So thanks for your consideration and time.
Thank you.
We had a lot of discussion on that stretch. It created lots of discussion, And I think one of the things that we gave a lot of consideration to was trying to reroute traffic down to state roads. And that was, we have Highway 50 2 miles away. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and again, I missed the Gable meeting. I should have been a vocal voice in that. You know, people who live in Yankton clearly know that I'll speak for the people also in Yankton, because I listen to a few people in Yankton. They take that 309 out towards Vollen and takes a direct shot to the interstate. So that's where some of that traffic, I believe, is getting fully hit. Going this way on the new Highway 50, going to Coffee Cup, maybe to Sioux Falls, it's just out of the way. With the traffic that's going to be, people think, well, you can take Washtown. Well, they want to avoid Irene, go up and down through that hill and what have you. And that would apply the same, taking 309 to Vollen and taking the
County line.
County line road to Irene, because then you're back in that same camp. So it's a very popular road to come 309, 451 to Vollen and out. And I just say for the people who are coming from Wakanda, Irene, Vollen, and even the city of Gayville, that's a heavy flow area, and they don't necessarily like to take 50. I get what you're trying to do, but they really want to come into the city of Yankton in the middle or the north part, they're going to take 309. And I would say this, when you talked about levies and whatever else, you know, I farm, we own and rent 20-some hundred acres. I own 3 homes, all in Yankton County, and I voted every time to push that levy through to get more money for these roads. So with that, that'd be my idea about why people are maybe traveling the way they do and why they're avoiding 50. And they sure in the heck ain't gonna go 305. Now that funnels, I mean, that number just south of 6 of Vollen, I think it was 660 some hits on that portion. They're all funneling 309 and heading west to Yankton.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of traffic there. And I'd say even this, I think Sherry and I would agree with this, is that a lot of that is not truck traffic. I mean, there's a bridge on 451 that's limited, and of course, Fleet Bridge is limited. So we kind of diverted the truck traffic, but I think from cars, pickups like trucks, we really want to utilize 309 to 451. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your information.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to speak on this topic? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. All right, I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion, and just like to say thank you to Don and Sherry and all the road task force members for all the effort that they placed into this, and you know, we will have it on the meeting for next. Do you want to vote on it the next one, or do we want to have it on the next meeting for further discussion? What do you guys want to do?
Well, as long as it's on the agenda, we can discuss it, and if we
Okay.
choose to vote, we
Yeah.
do. If we want to make changes, we wait
Yeah.
till the next one.
Yeah, I guess maybe we'll have another discussion, and if there's people like
Sure.
Mr. Cottle that weren't able to, they can come in and give us input, and I don't think, are we in a time crunch to get this approved?
No.
So let's put it on the agenda for next meeting as a discussion, and let's encourage people to come in and give us their input, just like he did. I think that was great. And
We have more discussion.
yeah, do we want to have some discussion? quick?
I just had some
Right.
questions.
We're half hour behind, so be quick.
Okay, well, and if it's in
No
here,
pressure.
forgive me,
No, I'm just kidding.
but
Sure.
I think I know how your mind works, Sherry, but the number of A roads, B roads, C roads, okay, how many miles of A roads, and if we plan on chip sealing every 5 years, that comes out to work out into our current budget?
Yes, and I know I have those numbers in this. I don't want to waste time digging for them, so I will bring those numbers to the
Okay.
next meeting. I do have those.
Okay. And then just, I guess my last comment is, you know, in light of what Mr. Cottle brought up, if that were to go to an A or a B, was there ever any contingency discussed? You know, what was the alternate route discussed at those meetings?
If it went to an A or a
if 309 were to be an A or a B, where would we have saved dollars or what?
I don't
If
know
it
if
goes to
I'm,
an A or B, it's where do we get the dollars to?
Yeah,
Well, that's, I mean,
it's-
was there
it's
another
more-
road that was discussed that, okay, it's
No.
either this one or that one, or it was
No.
okay.
no,
okay,
no, no.
Okay.
And just because it's a C road doesn't mean it's not going to be maintained. It's just that it won't be on every 5 years.
Right.
So, and that, a road with that base, getting chip sealed every 7 to 8 years, that's probably what most of our roads have been getting, if not
Well,
longer
if-
now.
Yeah,
with
if they were lucky.
with worse bases, so, that one was never talked about turning to gravel during our discussions, like the ones with the dots.
Okay. I do feel, I mean, I follow his thought, and I know that there was a lot more that went into all these meetings than this brief overview, so I don't want to totally come in the 11th hour, but I do know traffic does like to come in to that portion of the town. No one wants to come into the south side of Yankton
Mhm.
and then wiggle all the way through and hit all the stoplights and try to get up to, so it is it is the route, but, okay.
Anyone else on the board like to comment? Well, again, appreciate your guys' hard work on that. So we will have that for discussion again at the next meeting and go from there. All right, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, item 12A. Commissioner Healy, you were going to talk about a video.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly touch on, there were some concerns brought forth, some pieces of video missing and whatnot on the website, and to my knowledge, we've remedied all of those. We've contacted River Rat Productions, and there was errors here or there, but within a day they had the videos fixed. If somebody does notice something, let us know, and okay, sure, and we'll get it remedied or get it brought forward right away. And then I did want to just mention too, there were some videos taken down from the website, and that's how we've been operating as a county for a number of years. Once the YouTube account gets so full, we can't store new videos, so we take down old as we put up new. Those videos are archived here, and if anyone needed a copy, they can come to the auditor's office and bring a flash drive, or we'll get you a flash drive or do whatever. But those videos don't disappear, they're just archived.
You can say from there if you'd like. Okay. All right.
I'd like to address the whole thing.
Sure. Welcome, Craig. Sure.
My name's Craig Ernster, River Rat Productions. I do the videos for here. When we originally started this, we tried streaming. Streaming was too expensive, so our most economical alternative at the time was we got free YouTube. We were only allowed 128 gigabytes in total access. So with that only lasts us about 3 years. And so with that, what happened is we were hitting our account. And so with that, as soon as we hit 120 gig, they don't upload anymore. So we had to go back and delete some of the older videos to allow for future videos. Now, Patty's discussed with you, and I have also discussed with Patty, the county will be hosting their own videos in the near future here. I have most of those archived. So I will be sending those to Val and Patty and them, and we will be uploading them. We'll also be transferring over a very long period of time. All the YouTube videos will be replaced by county videos. And we're gonna do that so we can get rid of the account so there isn't that bulk sitting there. YouTube has a tendency to, because it's a free account, it's called a PEG channel. It's like a public education type channel. They limit us. We have nothing over that. And out of the blue, sometimes they may have a crash with their because it's all computer servers. If they have a crash, they will just dump our videos and not even let us know, because we're considered a public entity. It's not important. We don't pay for it. It happens to a lot of people who get free videos. And it just so happens we have a lot of videos up there. And we were over the limit. So we ended up getting partially deleted, and partial of it was the effects. Because some people were complaining when they were playing them back, they were choppy. And because of that, I had to do a lot of checking with Google. They don't always get back to you on it. But as we found out, we were at our count limit. So in the near future, the county will be hosting all the videos. And they will be up there forever as far as I'm concerned. And we are in the process of that. But we've been trying to do the best cost-effective way to keep our costs down, so the county, we don't have to raise our prices, and yet try to get it out there. And I know they become a very valuable resource for everybody, and we're aware of that. But what we also do is we make a DVD copy and we give it to the county. So when we get done with the video, you see it on YouTube, we also hand the county a copy of it. They have it on file. They've had that since we started. We have handed them copies since day one. So they have them back over 10 years worth. If you ever wanted to find one, they're there. If they can't make it for you, they'll contact me, and I will make that for you, and I can even email it to you. So we are being very proactive, and we're aware of it. And the thing that happened on October 1st was we hit our file limit. And then Joe I think you emailed me about it, then Val got to me, and it stopped at 2 hours and some minutes, and that was almost a 4-hour meeting. We re-uploaded it, and it was fine. So that's what happened on that incident.
That was the October 4th
October,
meeting.
sorry,
but yeah.
I meant October 4th, but it was that first meeting, that was that special meeting.
Yep.
Right. And then we only lost one meeting the first time in 15 years this year. And that was because the camera, the SD card crashed.
Yep.
And that's because of new technology, and there's not a lot we can do about that. We're aware of it. We have 2 cameras with us, but we don't know what happens until the end of that. So anyway, that's where we're at with it.
All right.
So I wanted everybody to know that we are being very proactive, and you guys are always letting me know about it. So
Appreciate that, Craig. And we as a commission have also done, a lot of the special meetings before were never recorded. Us doing the 7-hour, remember the 7-hour budget meeting?
Yes.
That's more data. Doing zoning and planning,
Well,
which hadn't been done before, and drainage and special meetings, that all
I
adds
think
up
that's
to it.
part of what happened this year. We were only doing X number. Then we added the drainage board and the planning and zoning this last year. They've gotten longer. They used to be an hour, now they're 2-3 hours.
Yep.
That data goes up. We compress them, but it's still an average. When we create it, it's a 13 gigabyte upload. Even though it's compressed, it's still probably half of that. And you start figuring out how many meetings we do a year, 4 meetings a month times 12 is 50, just 48. Then you multiply that by 6, that's almost our yearly allotment. So we are trying to be, and we're trying to be the best, management we can with it. And we're not trying to cut anybody out, but this is what we're limited at. Now we're trying to move to the next phase, so there will be no more. And you guys then will be, it'll be in your boat, not mine. Anyway,
Thanks,
that's where
Greg.
we're at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
All right. Did you have anything else on that?
No, I just wanted
So as far as we know, they're all posted. So, all right. All righty. Right, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break before we start Board of Adjustment. Everybody okay with that? Entertain.
One other thing.
Yeah.
If people have a problem with any of them, please comment below. As long as they're still on Facebook, leave the comments right there. I read it every week. And some people will leave comments, some don't. But that gets back to me. Because I get notices if there's any, like one person told me, there was 2 minutes gone one day. We went and checked it, and they were right. Somehow we had something happen, and we fixed it right away. That was about 3-4 years ago. So I like those comments. It helps us.
All right, thank you, Craig. All right, entertain a motion for a 5-minute break. So
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passed. 5-minute break. Second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. All right, now I'd entertain a motion to go into Board of Adjustment.
So moved.
Second.
I'm giving that one to Sherry. Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 13, a variance for Mr. Denherder. I see here this evening. Come on up, sir. Welcome. State your name for the record and tell us about your project.
Jim Denherder from 180 Oak Hills Drive in Yankton. My request is to add an additional garage to our property that we don't have a big enough one, I guess. So, we've been in contact with all the neighbors, that's all gone fine. For placement and things like that, we're not blocking anybody's view, so I'd just like to be here for your blessing, I guess.
Any questions for Mr. Denherter on this application? Now, originally, you had some neighbors that were opposed in the zoning and planning, and we did a continuance, and you discussed with your neighbors. And I think this is a really good example where communication with your neighbors and those problems, I assume, I hope, have been resolved. At least they were in the zoning and planning. So, I appreciate you doing that. That's how it should work. There was, I believe, it had moved from where you originally wanted it into a location that was acceptable.
Right.
Okay. So, any questions for?
Is there an access to the building going to be? Is it going to be a road access?
Yes, we're coming up from the bottom instead of from the top off of 180 Oak Hills. It's an actual vacated, I guess it's still a road, it's just a vacated road that runs up between us and Kurt Oliver.
You're going to take those trees out?
Yes. The evergreens?
Yeah.
Then there's a 10-foot variance. Is that part of moving that to
So what
the
I'm asking
agreement?
for is, it's an original 20-foot variance or setback, I guess, in the backyard. And what I'm asking for is, because of the elevation slope in our backyard, it's pretty substantial. What I would like to do, once we start to remove the dirt, it could be, we could be 15 feet from the property line, we could be 18 feet, but I know we're gonna be within the 20 feet. So.
Any other questions? Go ahead and open it up to public comment. So, anyone care to speak on this application, either for or against? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. Okay, go ahead and close the public comment portion. Did the zoning officer, did you guys have anything you'd like to add to this application?
Not really add,
Okay.
but just note
Sure.
that at the planning commission meeting, they split the variances up into 2 motions. So I don't know if you want to look it up too.
Was that
The rear yard setback and then the additional accessory structure, both passed.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and, was there the legal that, for that you could read?
Yep,
Yeah.
the legal is lot 9 and 10, block 3 Oak Hills, 1393-57.
Okay. And what was the, it passed, I believe it was unanimous, was it not?
Yeah,
for this one?
7-0, both votes.
Yep, both votes. So, okay. All right, back to the board. Do you have any questions for Mr. Denherter on this from the board?
Maybe you or whoever, there's still a letter here from Mr. Oliver, and I was not at the planning and zoning. Was he at that to confirm that he's?
Well, that was the original meeting, was that not?
Yeah.
So he came to the original meeting and addressed it with his attorney, and we did a continuance on that meeting and asked for those, if they could work something out. And correct me if I'm wrong, they moved the location to a place that was suitable for him. And the last planning and zoning meeting, he did not come in and contest it. And I don't think.
He's granting me an easement to.
Yeah.
He owns a lot behind or right next to us as well. We actually will come up onto his lawn or onto his lot and back in.
Okay.
He's granted me an easement to allow me to do that because I moved the building from A to B.
Okay. Sure. My only concern is there, in the packet is the original letter.
Would that be wise to have him submit a second letter and say that was resolved? Because at any point, someone in the future could pull this and say, well, wait a minute, was this ever addressed?
We actually were waiting for tonight's meeting to see where it went, and then we were going to draft an easement between the two of us and then get it signed by both parties. And I guess if you would like a copy of that for your packet, we can
It might,
give it to Jessica or whoever.
might be wise to put it in there.
Yeah.
And Mr. Oliver, he's not here tonight. I don't believe I didn't see him. And he was on the notification list as well,
Correct.
from what I saw. Any other questions for Mr. Denherter?
I'd move approval of the variance request.
Is there a second?
Based on the agreement between neighbors and Mr. Denherter.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Just to clarify, are we doing two motions on this?
Are we, isn't it just one, which are the variances? Is it two variances or is it one on this one?
It's two.
Okay. Yeah, we could do, how do you guys want to do it, as two? All right, we'll do two variances. So it's
Pick
maximum.
one, it's either the 10-foot.
I'm gonna do the 15-foot.
That's a maximum accessory structure size and a minimum yard setback. So which one was your variance?
Minimum yard
Okay.
setback.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second? I will second it. So I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes, motion passed. The next variance is for accessory structure size.
I'd make a motion to approve the requested variance for accessory structure size contingent upon a easement being filed with the office.
Okay.
Between Mr. Oliver and Mr. Denherter.
Okay. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
An easement, correct? He's gonna,
All right.
okay.
Right, I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dan,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Motion passed. You threw me off. I'm never
I'm
first.
sorry.
All right. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 14, conditional use permit for Hill. The Hill, welcome. Come on up here, state your name for the record and tell us about your project.
Sue Hill, and I would like to put a horse on my acreage.
This is a conditional use permit for a hobby farm in low-density residential, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the application says 2 horses.
Yes, sir, I just misspoke. There's 11.87 acres there.
You're in R1, low-density rural, and you said how many acres do you have, 11?
11.87.
Any other questions for Mrs. Hill? All right, I'll open it up to public comment.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone from the audience care to speak on this application, either for or against? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. All right, seeing and hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion. Do you have anything from the zoning office on this? I believe this passed the zoning office unanimously as well.
How did they make the motion? Is that in here? And the only reason I ask is it's 11.87 acres and hobby farms allow 1 animal unit per acre, so you can have 11.87.
They did make the point to say that she needs to adhere to the guidelines of the hobby farm, so
Okay.
she can have 5 horses out there, but they didn't want to say just 5 horses in case she wanted something else that.
Right, a horse and a chicken.
Yep.
Okay.
Just curious, ma'am, do you need to build any structures?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
Jessica, would you read that motion one more time? If I make it, I want to make it very similar.
Motion to approve conditional use for hobby farm for low density area per 607, number 8, as long as they adhere to guidelines of hobby farm.
All right. I move to approve the conditional use permit for the hobby farm for the low-density area as long as the applicant adheres to guidelines for hobby farms based on findings of fact dated, what was the date of your meeting?
October 8th.
October 8th, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion pass. Saddle up. Congratulations.
Can I make a statement?
Be quick.
I've had horses at our farm, and check your insurance because just a regular policy doesn't include horses.
Correct, I've already done that.
Okay. I figured you were way ahead of me, but
Yes, I did that, took care of that right away.
yeah.
Thank you.
Keep shutting
Have a
up.
nice evening.
Thanks.
All right, next item on the agenda, item number 15, a variance for Daniel Grant. Is Mr. Grant here? Come on up, sir. State your name for the record and tell us about your project.
Daniel Grant Vollen. We're looking at putting an additional dwelling on our farmstead. So we're asking for a variance to make it fit. We'll be putting it on the north side there, removing some trees in the tree line, putting in a home for my daughter.
How far are you going to be off the lot line?
I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Okay, I think I got the map.
I think it says 15 feet
15 feet?
on the shorter side.
From the north side from 75 feet to 40, and for the south side from
7 feet.
75 feet to 7, yeah. And is it going to be a house or a modular? Or
It's gonna be a modular.
Modular. Okay. Any other questions from the board? I'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Any questions? All right, I'll go ahead and open it up to public comment, so. Anybody from the audience care to speak on this application? Now would be the time. Come on up.
I saw that too.
State your name for the record, and I'll give you.
I have some questions. First
Sure.
off, I couldn't hear anything you said. You just spoke quietly, and I will admit I am deaf. Sir, you own.
Is he asking me or is he asking you?
Ask, direct your questions to us,
acres does
please.
he own?
Is it in here?
Less than 20.
Okay, so in 20 acres is what the current zoning requires for a building site? And I realize that was an existing building site, familiar with it for years. But he's requesting a variance, but yet according to the zoning laws, he has to have a conditional use permit to put a second house on, even if it is an ag district. And according to section 1907, you can't have a variance. And I think you're starting a very, very down a very slippery slope here in the fact that I don't know how many, but it's less than 20. I heard it was 3. I don't know what the state requires for a sewer system. Where are you gonna draw the line when it gets down to 300 square feet? I got another kid that wants to come home. Geez, he wants to help me farm my 3 acres. Can I keep building houses until it's just one giant compound? I don't think so. I thought zoning was to protect ag. And turning it into a residential district isn't protecting ag. Now, he wants to put a mobile home in there for his family, so if and when the time comes, somebody wants to move on, I don't care. But we either have the zoning rules and they apply to everyone and not just certain people. I have a hard time with that, and I'd hate to have to see him spend a year and a half in court like I did when I did everything legal.
We've got a state's attorney here, maybe he can help us out with the, Louis, we've got a state's attorney here, maybe he can help you out with some answers.
No, Gary, I think what we have is zoning administrator, and he can answer and go through them, and we all have looked at it, so you could know it, and you should have looked at it also.
We're in public comment, we'll do public comment,
Oh, I'm
and we'll
sorry.
have the zoning administrator okay, we're still in public comment. Anybody from the audience care to speak on this? Now would be the time to do so. Speak for or against? Going once, going twice. All right, I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion. Would the zoning office care to come and speak on this, and I guess you can help to, if you want to address the concerns that were stated.
Real quick, I'd like to say it's been precedent before the previous commission and this commission where we've grandfathered, or we've actually passed a lot of these. Variances included without a conditional use with the farmstead. So this has been done multiple times, and I don't believe ever Mr. Johnson has spoken against any of those at any time. So I find it a little strange that all of a sudden he speaks against mine. And as far as selling it or renting it out or something, I'm not doing that, and I'm definitely not leasing it to a corporation either, so thank you.
Would you guys care to speak on this for a moment?
Mr. Chairman, I agree also that that was one of the questions that we raised when I went through the ordinances. It looks to me that a conditional use is needed for a second residence in ag. The question is, like you said, I don't know what you've been doing precedence-wise before this time, but just looking at the ordinance straight up, it looks like that a conditional use would be needed for a second residence, so.
I think we did the Melhoff one that was just a variance, but he did own the property around it. That was a variance.
Sure. Is that where there was a foundation there?
Yeah, I believe there was one that was already there at one point.
I would also like to note that every neighbor of ours, land or residential, has agreed that they have no issues with this whatsoever. And one of my closest neighbors submitted a letter.
Saw there was a letter here.
And the previous zoning administrator and the one before that has also done variances for the farmsteads as well.
I had a question.
I did have one come in, it's in your packet that says they don't agree with it, but that was since the last meeting. And she called as well, so I put that in there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw that. I'm looking for
Jessica, I had a question on the front page, the actual variance request.
Mm-hmm.
On notes towards the bottom, it references Article 5, Section 515. Do you know what that is referring to by any chance?
I have a look at it.
Because I don't think we have a 515. Oh, we have 515 minimum yard requirements. Was there something else in here too?
I think that was put in there because in 1503, when you do two houses on one lot, they both have to maintain their own yards. And so they each have to have 75-foot setbacks. So that's why one of his is only 7 feet, because the main house maintains their 75-foot setback, but then he's only 7 feet from their 75. So there should be 150.
The 7 feet
not.
isn't really from the property line, it's from the theoretical property line.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
So how far is this new structure going to be from the, if you looked at the whole lot, that?
Yeah, if you look at
it's the one with the red on it.
South lot line kind of gives you a good idea. So this is, that square is part of the main house, the original house's yard. That's what that square represents.
Okay.
So that's 75 feet. So there's 7 feet off of that. That other square at the top is the new, where the new house is gonna go. So they're 7 feet off of that lot line, and then they're 40 from the actual lot line.
Okay.
Okay.
On the north side, which is on the other sheet.
So Gary, you're recommending that this gets a conditional use permit, and it would also need a variance because of the minimum lot requirement? So, okay. What would your advice be? Should we send this back to the zoning and planning board, or what would you recommend?
That would be my recommendation.
Okay, send it back to the zoning and planning board. Okay. What is the board?
What we were actually, it's not really on here, but what was actually approved was a second home for 1503, is that correct? And then a variance for the setbacks?
Get my notes going. Second.
Recommended for approval, I should say.
Yeah, I wrote down, because I watched the video and I wrote down 513 number 5, and that's essentially the additional dwelling unit is allowed within the farmstead upon approval of a building permit application if it is to be occupied by other members of the family farm unit, provided the property is not transacted or prepared, platted, or described. And I do remember you guys discussed, how do we ensure that never happens, that we sell that off? And I don't think there was ever resolution in your discussion, but I have here variance was approved by all. But there's no conditional use, and I don't know if they went back and noticed that you need a conditional use for a second home. Dwellings, additional farm in excess of one. And that's number 12 under section 507, and that's what you're referring to as the CUP. It's allowed, you just have to have a CUP for it. Dwellings. Number 12 is dwellings, additional farm in excess. Yep, that's a house.
Well,
They're calling it a farm
farmstead
dwelling.
Or
Because you're in an ag zoned property.
Right.
So they refer to it as a farmhouse.
That says farm, it doesn't say house.
Well, it starts with dwellings.
In addition, farm.
Yeah, but you're not living in the barn.
I'm saying, we don't have another farm, it's a farmstead, but there's no farms. We're not putting another farm on it, we're putting
That's what this is referencing is.
It's referencing the dwelling.
A second farmhouse essentially, a dwelling.
So the previous zoning administrator approved it. Now that we let him go and hire somebody else after the fact, we've already done the building permit. We're gonna reverse that decision. It cost us more money to process. Even though precedent says you guys have done this before. So as Mr. Johnson says, if you're gonna try to do it to everybody, now you're gonna change it on me.
Well, what I think is happening is there's two ways to skin the cat here.
You're gonna change it.
No, I wouldn't say that. There's an ag district and there's a conditional use for a secondary dwelling. And then there's also Article 15 that allows a secondary principal structure on a lot. And I think what happened at Planning and Zoning is, my understanding is the application was coming forward as a Article 1503, but in the approval, it was referenced the 513.5. Is that what?
That's what I listened, no, that's what I listened to. Now, maybe I didn't hear it correctly.
Which would be the conditional use?
Dan, you were there.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to listen to the zoning administrator and his experience, and if he recommends it goes back to the zoning and planning board to take another look, I think that's the best for everybody long-term. Make sure we do it the way we're supposed to. So is that your recommendation, Gary, that we send it back? Yeah. So, you know, I know everybody wants to get things done as fast as possible, but I think this might warrant a relook by the zoning planning board, and maybe that group can.
Well, I think there's opportunity to clean it up.
Yeah, I think that's.
Dan, were you gonna start construction this fall?
We're gonna start it this month, awaiting approval. It'd be nice to know the planning and zoning if they were gonna change the rules as we go. Especially since President's Day.
Well, it's real tough, and I feel sorry for you. You know, the environment that it is anymore is, we don't, lawsuit would be a lot longer for you, so. As I would make a motion to send this application back to the zoning and planning board for a second look.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Don,
No.
Gary,
No.
Joe? Joe? Oh, sorry.
No.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes, motion failed.
Can,
What do you guys want to do?
well, I guess my question is, can we move forward with having the discussion and approval of the CUP under Article 513?
Do you want to give us your advice?
And that's what's
Gary?
confusing is
Well, this is an application for a variance, not a CUP.
Right, that's the problem.
So I just,
But I think that needs to be on there.
Wow.
That's more of a legal question.
Right.
Rob, what would you recommend to us?
If we could, it wasn't addressed at the planning commission.
Right.
And brought up. I know we can add more conditions and we can change variances, but that wasn't addressed and applied for at the time.
So what would you recommend as a board that we do? Could we send it, I guess, a motion to send to the planning commission failed, so I guess, what do you guys got for ideas? What do you
Well,
want to
here's
do?
my concern is sending this back to the planning commission doesn't fix it. We need to make sure that the application is fixed and that there's a hearing for a CUP, if that's what we're gonna discuss.
Could we approve the variance contingent on a conditional use being approved for, is that, or would you? No, well.
I would think so.
Sure, all right.
You see where, if we
Yeah.
just simply send this back, can we remedy it? Would be my question.
Ask state's attorney.
Well, that's what we're
Remedy
discussing.
as
I
far
guess.
as change it to a CUP?
Right.
So it would have to be advertised as a CUP
Right.
application?
Right, it would almost be a new application, that's the problem.
Yeah.
What was your, state your recommendation again?
And I think as Joe stated, I think that's where we are. Then if the zoning administrator is saying we need a conditional use, it's gonna go back and have to be advertised and submitted in front of the planning commission that way and follow those rules.
I'd probably be more okay with it, Dan, if the motion was more clear to
Sure.
Send back to here as a CUP for 513 or something.
If you want to make that motion, floor is open.
I'd move to,
Question from
Dan.
Yeah, Brian, come on up. You were here at this time, so we appreciate.
Reopen the public comment?
Yeah, entertain a motion to reopen public comment.
Just a citizen here.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Further discussion?
I think one thing,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
one
Motion
thing you need
passed.
to consider here, and within the zoning ordinance too, is you have supplemental regulations, which is 15, Article 15. That is an overlay district that lays over all the other districts, from ag all the way through. So that sits on top of the other ones. So what these applicants applied for at the time was 1503, you can put a principal structure on a lot, provided it meets for area width, whatever, and that meets while we hit these setback distances. It has nothing to do with additional farm dwelling, because then you get confused. You have additional farm dwelling where you can put somebody who's not platted. Mr. Johnson made the reference, if he wants another son to come back and wants to live on the farm place, they can do that if they don't plat the ground. We don't care. You can do that. But if you do more than one of those, that kicks into conditional use. And that's what that, and I'm going from memory here, so, as a layperson, memory from this. So the supplemental, what the grants are going for is, you can put, if you have the acreage out there and want to put 2 houses, now they don't have the acres to put 2 houses out there. In a perfect world, they would have a 40-acre, quarter out there, and they want to put 2 principal dwellings out there, one on 20, the other on 20, with an imaginary property line in between, and you meet the 75-foot setbacks. We don't have that in this situation. They have a farmstead, which is legally defined, which doesn't have to meet the 20 acres. Therefore, they're in the door. Now they're coming in and saying, we're in the door, we don't have to meet the 20. Now we're asking for a variance to put another household there. So the question is, it's not can they put a house there, it's will you allow have them to put a house on that size of a lot? That's the question for you, in my opinion.
And that's where my concern, or where I was curious, because that was my assumption, is they were looking at Article 1503, two principal structures on a single lot. But I think, like as Sherry said, the motion was referencing Article 513 at planning and zoning to approve it. And that's where it gets confusing. And there's a variance on here referencing section 515, which is correct.
It's unfortunate that we didn't have the information from you, Brian, before we voted on this.
Well, Brian's just a layperson. and
He's
just kinda
helping us
hangs
out.
over at another office now,
Yeah.
so. But I
Thank you.
did work with the applicants,
Mhm.
and Jessica was just kind of started or
Sure.
just coming along. So, and I don't want to subvert anybody, but I want to make sure that they're well represented. And I agree, if you went the other route without that supplemental regulations, you definitely would need a conditional use for this situation. So it could be go different ways, but I know this was couched in that way.
Right.
It is a tough decision either way for you, but it can be done this way and decided tonight whether or not you want to give that to them. But they certainly have the right to have it under supplemental, because it's not, it's really almost a shall if they meet these requirements.
Right.
So that's where we're at as far as I understand it tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else
Thank
care
you.
to speak on this topic where the public comment is open? Going once, going twice. All right, close public comment, back to the board. Joe, did you have a motion that you were gonna make? I think you did.
Thinking about one.
Yeah.
I guess the part I struggle with applying that one is how it's written. It shall, provided that the yard and other requirements of this ordinance shall be met for each structure as though it were on an individual lot. And then we're asking for a variance. I guess that's the part I'm struggling with, is now we're saying, yes, we can do it, but now we're asking for a variance in order to do it. And so is this 1503 supposed to be more restricted, so we can't, so we can't pack houses in tiny lots, without meeting the setbacks? I guess that's my struggle sitting here and applying this one, is if we're gonna use it, are we allowed to variance it in order to use it? So, and I know I'm splitting hairs, but it seems everybody splits hairs these days on every decision we make. And that's where I'm struggling. And I don't know if there's any guidance from the three people in this room who obviously know more about zoning and laws and stuff than I do.
We did do one that I think of Melhoff.
Melhoff, yep.
That would have been one where we had, the trailer house was moved, there was one, it was gone, we moved one, and we had to do like 3 yard setbacks, if I remember.
But was that under 1503, or was that a conditional use, or was that Article 5 with a variance?
It was a combination of all things.
It-
I can't remember exactly.
So, and that's the part I'm struggling with, is I think we need to achieve some type of consistency, to Dan's point, but we have all this history that I am not aware of, all of these things that we've decided on, so I'm sitting here with virgin eyes, if you will, reading an ordinance, trying to apply the most fair way across the county, knowing that the decision always sets a new precedent.
Well, I know we have approved several of them this way, and, Melhoff being, I believe, the last one, and Mr. Grant is applying it for a similar way.
But no
So
one has verified Mr. Melhoff was done exactly this way. Everybody
No.
said we did it, but what was the path we took to get there? And for me to make a decision using this ordinance without understanding at least 2 examples of where we've done this in order to be fair. And I know maybe I'm just trying to split hairs here.
Melhoff was not one.
Melhoff did not get 1503. It was a CUP.
It was an additional family farm dwelling.
Under Article-
They had 600 acres around there, and they had an existing manufactured home. So it was not,
Yep, so we
the
can't,
memories of what it used to be, but I'm pretty sure we did additional farm dwelling and just said that they may not have farmed it because they were elderly retired there, but they still controlled the farm in their office and stuff from that building.
I think we said there was two structures already, because the trailer that was going to be moved in was going on to a foundation. There was an existing trailer that had been moved off, and so there was utilities going to that.
Yep.
And all that.
Well, and, you know, I guess one point I'll bring up is, you know, we have hired a new zoning administrator. He's sitting right there, and he gave us advice on what he recommended, and we voted against it. So if you got a better idea, let's hear it, or let's not be here all night. He told us he recommended,
Right.
send it back to the zoning and planning board, and 3 of you guys voted against it. If you got a better idea, let's hear it, and
I
let's.
think based on what I've heard from Rob, I would probably adjust my vote.
And I would too.
Okay, so is that, do we want to send this back to the zoning and planning board for another review on whether or not it needs a conditional use permit in addition to a variance? That's, because that's what you're recommending, so is,
Can we vote on it again tonight?
make a motion?
yeah, you make a new motion.
Yeah, the motion failed, so it's open, so somebody, I made the last motion, so.
I make a motion that we re-vote on the Dan grant.
Make a clear motion than that, Gary.
Okay.
So do you want to send it back to the planning commission for further review?
No.
No.
I want us to vote on it again because Don had second thoughts, and after I heard the additional information from our prior.
Just to be clear, Gary, though, what we voted on though was to send it back.
That
We
was the
never
vote.
actually voted on the.
That's what our zoning administrator is telling us we should do. He's like, send it back to the zoning and planning board. We hired him because he's got a lot more experience than we do. I want to listen to what he has to say.
Yeah.
I made that motion, it failed. He's the expert. He's telling us what we
Yeah.
should do. And so somebody wants to make another motion, go ahead, but I feel that's what we should do. It failed, so.
Well,
I'd move that we send this application back to planning and zoning for a second look to consider a CUP, or whether or not it needs a CUP.
In addition to the variance?
In addition to the variance.
I'll second that. I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
and Dan.
Yes, motion pass. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item number 16, conditional use permit for Crown Castle. Is there somebody here representing Crown Castle, or were you guys going to cover that? All right, come on up and explain the application, please. Welcome. I'll introduce it. This is Gary Vetter, and this is our new Director of Development Services / Zoning Administrator. So I'd like to welcome you to Yankton County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this, here in Yankton County, you have a consultant that helps you deal with with all the cell tower information, and basically what he's saying that per federal regulations that the modifications of the cell tower need to be done within 30 days, and so he basically said you have to push this through and approve it to meet the federal regulations. So per discussion with him, that's the recommendation at this time.
A recommendation that we approve a conditional use permit for tower modifications, is that correct? Okay. And do we know what exactly the modifications are on this? Is it adding new equipment or?
I think they're switching
I think it's just
it into.
replacing some existing.
Adding 3, you meant? Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
I see it.
And I'll just concur, I met with our consultant a few weeks ago, and he mentioned that this was here, and I think there might be some other ones.
Yeah, and his
coming or
plan
here,
is to he's unavailable for a couple weeks, but after that, he would like to meet with everybody and discuss everything that's going on.
Yeah. And what it is, there's a federal law that essentially says these towers exist, they can make these modifications. We really don't have any say in it.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah, okay.
It's,
But our ordinance requires any maintenance work, needs a CUP? I mean, is this just maintenance work, or?
in that, I think, if I remember right, under what the maintenance they're doing, it's not a CUP. That can be done administratively, I believe.
Correct.
And the other thing though is I think if we don't give them an answer within the 30 days, whether they need a CUP or not.
They do it anyway.
They can do it without the CUP.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's yet another example where we gotta take a hard look at Article 25 and keep it updated. And, technology's changing so fast. Federal rules and laws are changing so fast. So your recommendation is we approve it. Do you have anybody have any questions for Mr. Vetter? I'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Did you have anything else, Mr. Vetter?
No,
on this?
that is all.
Okay. Anybody from the audience care to speak on this application, either for or against? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. All right, seeing and hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the public comment. Are there any other questions for Mr. Vetter? Entertain a motion.
Move approval of the Crown Castle application.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion passed. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 17, clarification of monitoring wells for Mr. Remfer. I believe he's not here tonight, is he? But we did owe him, I think he wanted us to kind of clarify what we were actually asking of him.
He did call me and asked to
Okay.
be removed from the agenda. It was after I had set my items.
Okay.
So, he is not here because he asked to be removed.
Okay.
Okay. Well, he asked us at the last meeting, he wanted to know exactly what we wanted him to test for. So, Rob, what would your advice be? He asked at the last meeting, to specify what we were asking him for in the test wells, and then he's not here tonight. What would you recommend we do?
Well, I would recommend we wait till him and see what his requests are.
Okay.
And I think that's
Okay.
fine, and I know it's a conditional use, he's making that request pursuant to his application.
Okay.
And I think if it's a clarification,
Yeah.
basically dotting an I, crossing a T, then I don't have any problem with somebody coming and making those requests.
Okay.
So, but we'll see what he wants.
Just reading into it, I don't know that he's planning on coming back. The last time he came, he was requesting to modify the conditions of that permit. And we kind of decided we were going to continue discussion at this point. What I'm assuming, and we'd have to confirm with him, but what I'm assuming is he's no longer going to modify his permit, and he just needs a clarification of what to test for. So I don't know if we need to formally do that, or if Jessica or Gary can get him the requirements of what we want to test.
And Joe, if those are something that are readily identifiable, and they don't have to be set forth, and then those two could do it.
Believe we were going to follow state standards to keep it uniform,
Yep. And
whatever
I
the
think
state.
if that's a thing you
Okay.
could look at, and we all look at
Okay.
and determine it, then either one of
Okay.
those two could do that.
Okay.
But I do remember during the discussion, we had talked about, instead of 2 test wells, could we move it to 1? And that was one of the issues that, can we do that? So,
And Sherry, my position is there's nothing in there that allows for a modification of a conditional use. So unless it's like looking up a well percentage of what you want to test for or something, I do think you're going to have to go back and treat it like a new application.
Okay.
So you have to go through, follow those procedures, because there's nothing that allows us to modify conditional use. So if we're going to, because somebody might want to bring up whatever, if we're going from 2 to 1, and, for location, depth, whatever was argued at the time. So specifically that, but my position would be nothing that allows modification, you'd have to go back and make an application.
Jessica, can you confirm with him if he just is looking for clarification or if he wants to reschedule? And then we'll get him the information. Thank you.
Right, so we'll take no action on that one. Everybody fine with that? All right. Moving on, okay. Entertain a motion to come out of Board of Adjustment and go back into regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, back in regular session. Entertain a motion to go into Drainage Board.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion. I'll give that one to Gary. A second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We're now into Drainage Board. Next item on the agenda, item number 18, hearing request from Mr. Stevens. Is Mr. Stevens here? Welcome, sir. Little behind schedule. Apologize for that.
My name's Scott Stevens with Sealand Marine, and we have if you go down the hill, we have a boat store on the south side of the road. It's between 7th and 8th Street and Deer Road. We bought the property in 2006 and been having a marine business out of it. And when we bought the property, the land drained through a little valley onto our ditch on Deer Road. So we, a few years ago, our stringers decided they were going to add a bar, and we were having some problems with people coming on our property and drinking. They were getting in customers' boats. They were throwing beer bottles and stuff. And I understand it's a bar. So we put a fence up around the property, which when that happened, it eliminated a lot of his parking. So I believe Tom, I don't know Tom personally, but I believe he got upset with us because now he has nowhere to park, and there was a lot of issues with police or the sheriff going down there having people move cars from the road and stuff. Well, what happened is when he got upset, our little valley that drains our property decided to fill with dirt. So now our whole parking lot, when it rains, completely fills with water. So we can't get any water draining off of our property. So what I'm here asking is if we can somehow have him put that valley back in so our water drains where it's supposed to drain, which is on our property on the ditch of Deer Road. So what's happening is that from where our fence is all the way to our new building, that whole thing is full of water. So customers bring their boats in, they're getting them dirty, and just a lot of things. We just would like the water to drain like it used to the whole time we've been there. And we thought everything was good. We were going up there we were actually just gonna take the dirt out. It's just dirt. We were gonna just do it for him, and then all of a sudden when we were gonna go do it, then he said, we're not doing it. So we're just at a standstill, and we're just trying to figure out what to do. So we're not asking for anything new, we're just asking for that little bit of dirt to be moved so our water will drain where it always has drained.
So you had spoken with him and come to an agreement. When was that?
A couple of years ago.
Couple of years ago.
3 or 4 years ago, Pat communicated with him a lot about this, and Pat had this thing all structured and set up when he was here, okay? Well, then this spring when we were gonna go out and do that, the guy I was gonna have do it.
And could you give us your name for the record so we can put it in the minutes, sir?
My name's Doug Stevens.
All right, thank you, sir.
Anyhow, we had this all set up to do this spring, and when the guy I was gonna have do it went over and talked to Tom about it, and said, Tom, next week we're gonna open this drainage ditch back up again. He said, no, you're not. That's where we're at. Okay? But Pat had communicated with him many times. In fact, the last time we were in here to get a variance on a building permit, which we have not built that building yet, And Pat stood up here and talked about that because that was always everybody's concern. What are you guys doing with the drainage, that water out there? And Pat spoke up and he said, we've got an agreement with Tom. And if you look back through the records, I think you'll see that in the records, that we got an agreement with Tom that he's gonna open that ditch back up.
So there's a written agreement somewhere?
I don't have a written agreement.
Okay.
Whether you have one in here, I don't know what kind of notes Pat kept when he was in the office. I don't have any idea. Did you find anything, Jessica? Gary? You guys didn't find anything when I was up there talking about it. So apparently, there was not any notes made anyplace, you know, but it was all set up, and Pat stood right in here and told you guys all that this thing is all set up for that ditch to be cleaned back out like it was. We bought that property in 2006. Prior to us, Don's Marine had that property. He lost it to the bank. We bought it from the bank. Prior to that, Veterans out of Mars, Iowa had that property. And Veterans was out there for several years. And during that whole period of time, and did you bring that picture up that we pulled up? During that whole period of time, that drain was in there. That drain has been in there forever, okay? And I know when Roger, that owned the Quick Shop from Lee, Nebraska, and I know him real well, I went to junior college with him in Norfolk. When he owned the Quick Shop, you know, he said, yes, that drainage ditch was in there. It's been in there forever. It was in there when I bought the Quick Shop, and that's fine, it's gonna stay, okay? Then when the Iranians or whoever it was that bought the Quick Shop, I don't remember who that was for sure, but I think that's what it was. When they bought the Quick Shop, I tried to communicate with him some about it, and he said, not a problem, that drainage ditch is in there, it's gonna be in there to stay, okay? Well, what happened was, when we put that fence up, Tom told my sister, Marilyn, which runs the boat shop for us out here, because he was always having vehicles on our property. He told my sister, Marilyn, he said, Marilyn, I'm just gonna keep hauling dirt in there and I'm just gonna flood your property back up. And that's what he did. So here we got a drainage ditch that's been there for, I don't know how long, 20, 30, 40 years. And he just hauled a load in, level it off, a load in, level it off, a load in, level it off. Kind of doing it maybe once every couple of months, he'd bring in another load of dirt and level it off until he got that completely filled in, okay? And then right next to our concrete drain that we have in there, he's got his dirt about yay high. So every time it rains, our whole concrete drainage ditch fills up with water, okay? In there, okay? Now, when we built that building out there, when we built that new showroom, and when we built that new service building and built that new storage building all in one unit, we made sure that on the south side of that building, that we retained a slope in there, so Power Sports, the water off of Power Sports would drain, okay? Because that was a comment that they asked me about. They said, you know, when you guys built this building on here, are you because we raised our building up about 2 foot. Sure. Are you guys gonna back water up on mine? I said, absolutely not. I wouldn't think of backing water up on anybody else's property. So if you go out there and look on the south side of our new building, you'll see how that comes down and how that comes back up in there, okay?
All right.
Now, if we ever want to fill that up in there, we will, and Scott and I have talked about this, we will put a 12-inch tube in there, through there, underneath there, if we ever decide to fill that up so we can make a driveway come out of that door on the south side of the building. We will put a 12-inch tube in there, and so we can continue to drain Power Sports property back onto our concrete drain, okay?
Okay.
All we want is for them to open that ditch back up at their cost, okay?
All right.
Now, if I remember right, as for Jessica, whoever was here part-time the last year or so, he went and talked to them, and Tom said, well, yeah, they can go ahead and dig that out of there at their expense, and if I want more dirt, they gotta bring in more dirt for me and level it off at our expense. Everything is at our expense. We can clean it out at our expense. When we get done, if he decides he wants to put more dirt in there, we gotta bring the dirt in at our expense, and we gotta level it off at our expense. Why should this all be our expense when he's the one that created the problem?
All right, thank you. I'm gonna open it up to public comment. Anybody else care to speak on this topic, either for or against? Now would be the time to do so. Come on up, Deb. Welcome. State your name for the record.
Deb Odensted. Is this on?
I think so.
Just now?
Yeah.
I was on planning and zoning. There was an agreement between the two property owners. It was going to be, fit so it would drain. So if you look at the Board of Adjustment records or the Planning and Zoning records, there was a decision made and it was agreed between the two landowners. So I don't know what happened in the meantime, but it was brought forward in the same manner, that it's not draining, and I know it's in the record.
Do you know what year?
Date?
Year would be good.
I think,
Year, month?
no, I think it was probably in 18.
Okay, so like
Do you remember,
last
Don?
year.
Yeah, sometime last year. I don't remember when, but it came forward in the same format that the water isn't draining, and it, all the history with the parking and the fence and the, where the snow is going to build up between the building, because it's a short distance between the fence and stringers. I mean, that was all in there, but the big thing was the drainage, and so we made a decision, and it was going to be it was going to get done.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else care to speak on this topic, either for or against? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. All right, seeing or hearing none. Any other questions for
Is,
Mr. Stevens?
is the owner of Stringers here? Okay.
So you feel this is a natural drainage?
Yeah, it was a natural drainage from before I was born.
And this kind of goes back to our issue just a mile to the east of here, earlier this year, with some water backing up. And I don't know that we have the authority as drainage board or the county even to do a whole lot. I don't know we have jurisdiction, and we kind of talked about that last time. And I think, or was I just looking at that? But I think this certainly falls under South Dakota Codified Law 31, 2113, 31, 2112, 31, 2111, which is obstruction of a ditch, civil liability for obstruction of a ditch, and entry upon land for maintenance of a ditch. I'd have to look at this more, but I question if we have jurisdiction over this, or the state does. If it would be the state or the county over this matter. Did this come in front of the Drainage Commission?
I was not there that night. It did go before
thought it
you were
did,
at the
right?
Drainage
It did go before them, and
Commission.
they recommended that was in the interim. It was just me, and I was taking everything to them, and they said to bring it to the drainage board.
Yeah, but if we have something in writing that's, as Deb referred to, that is part of either a variance or a CUP or something, if we've got something in writing, I think we should find that first.
Or video.
Video, yep, there's videos. But we should find that first, because that is an obligation to me that the county could enforce.
And Sherry,
Yeah.
and I'd agree, that's what I was gonna say. I would almost maybe let Gary or Jessica look back and see what they can see, and then we can kind of address it, maybe just bring it up for the next meeting, and then it'll give us time to hopefully be a little more information to the board, see if there's something good or bad, and then determine to go, which way to go.
So you think a
Right.
continuance to next meeting to gather more information?
Yep, that'd be my recommendation, yeah.
Somebody want to make that motion?
Just a minute.
Joe's got a question.
Now, were you at that meeting, or
No, I was.
from your recollection, was there a written agreement, or was it just discussed that there's an
I
agreement?
don't remember, you know that better than I do, whether that turned into be a written agreement or not. I can't answer that.
Board of
question.
Adjustment, it came before the Board of Adjustment, I'm sure.
Right.
So it should have been in the findings of facts.
Right, it should be in the minutes of it,
Well, yeah.
right. It has to be.
Do you remember when that
Mr.
was, sir? Do you have a,
I-
well,
Sometime
month?
between.
Well,
Yeah, sometime, yeah.
thinking
Mr.
month.
Chairman.
Thinking month.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. McGinnis might have some light.
Hold on.
subject.
Yeah, come on up. Give you a couple minutes.
I presented this to you, I remember we talked about this, and Mike Sedlacek and I went out there and we shot the elevations, and then it went into the county ditch, but the problem was at the county ditch, that it's supposed to drain south, and it actually drains
Remember you
north.
mentioning that,
Yeah, but we've shot the elevations. We went out, Mr. C, we met with Mr. Naker, Mr. Stevens was out east, I think.
Right.
So we've shot all the elevations there. It is a natural drainage going from their property through there. You can see the swale, you can see the cut going down into the ditch. The problem being is that you'll have to coordinate with Mike because that water is not going where you want it to go. If it hits that ditch, it's going to go back north. That's also where all the Highway 52 water is coming from to the south, and it's sitting between the two approaches at Stringers there, and there aren't proper drainage going south, nor is there enough culverts going south.
So somebody built in a hole.
So basically, it's hitting that culvert and going over the top of the field, and then going a mile east.
Okay.
All right.
So we have talked about this. I don't know, this is the first I've heard about anything else about this other stuff.
Well, I think bottom line, we need, we'll have a continuance next month. We gotta gather information, look it up, and we'll have to address it then because we don't have the information we need now. So that'll be the plan of action. Somebody wanna make that motion? We'll do a continuance till next.
Move for continuance until next meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes. All right, motion passed. Do we have a date for that meeting? We should probably.
The next meeting.
And what's the next county? meeting?
19th.
The 19th so it'll be the 19th of November. We'll have that on the agenda, so the 19th of November. So, did you have something quick, sir?
No, that was what.
Okay, the 19th.
The next meeting was.
Yep.
Do you,
We'll be
I'm
then,
down a lot, I gotta.
okay,
do you have contact information?
all right. All right, entertain a motion to come out of drainage board and go back into regular session.
So moved.
So, second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we're back in the regular session. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 19, zoning enforcement update. All right, are we going to take this one, or
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Did you want to take this one, or did you want to have? All right, we'll have you start and tell us. Yep, we'll do that.
First couple of weeks have been pretty busy, and so per request, determination was made on the possible expiration of 5 building permits and conditional uses. Upon review, letters were sent out Friday, October 25th, 2019. Since then, response letters have been received by all from their attorneys, which will be reviewed by the state's attorney office for recommendations on next action needed. Letters were also sent out Friday, October 25th regarding the block retention wall issue, stating that the county will not be taking any further action due to this not being addressed in the ordinance. And basically, I've also been working on floodplain development permits. We have like 50 to 70 points that we're going to be doing for all the flooding that's occurred in the county. So we got to do floodplain development permits on all those sections of road that are in the floodplain, and so I'm working on that. And then lastly, we've had meetings, some initial meetings, just discussing the history of the zoning ordinance. Had some initial discussions of things the planning commission and county commission may want to possibly review and look at down the line. And when I attended the drainage committee meeting, there was a movement of possibly doing some more administrative review and approvals in our office, so we'll definitely be working on that also. So that's pretty much all I had, if there's any other questions.
So I think we need to be clear about the permits that went out for enforcement for the confinements. And this kind of gets to what Mr. Woods was alluding to, I think. But so the October 4th meeting that was held by the Planning Commission, those were all taken as recommendations. You have reviewed all of the documents yourself.
Correct.
And the letters were signed by you, sent out by you, not by the Planning Commission. So There was no official decisions made at the October 4th meeting.
And that was the directive that I had.
Yes.
to review
Okay,
those.
I just wanted to make sure that was clearly stated in the public.
Right.
Okay.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Rob, or?
Sherry said it. That planning commission meeting was just an investigation portion, and it was an independent decision by Gary and his staff as the zoning administrator, so.
Thank you.
In the position now, I believe they would have all have appealed, so then the next process would be in front of the Board of Adjustment at some time in the near future, which I think we'll need to schedule relatively quick.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Vetter?
So I got a question. We sent this letter out telling everybody that had either started or was, had hogs in their buildings that had been in operation. We sent this out and I have a building permit from one of the individuals that I believe received the letter. And it says this permit will expire if work or construction authorized is not commenced within 180 days, or construction is not substantially completed within 2 years of issuance. Is there a difference? I mean, in the letter, I think you just identified the 180 days. The permit appears to me to say they have 2 years for the
Building
permit.
permits are
For the
good for
permit
up to
to be
2
good.
years if they've been started within the 180 day.
Doesn't say that.
It
It
states that
started
on the-
within 180
Yeah.
and finished within 2 years.
Yeah, and we've actually denied a couple permits for that one recently, one in Lesterville, so.
It says 180 days or construction is not substantially completed. It doesn't say and, it says or.
Yeah, started within 180 days, does it not?
Doesn't say that.
Well, I think that's a building permit. I think we also have our zoning ordinance,
Yeah.
you know,
Can I see
section
that?
1725. So,
Because I know in that software, we have something, took it right off of here. Is not commenced within 180 days, or construction
Is not substantially completed, one or the other. Not both.
So,
one or the other.
Right, and the one takes precedence if it's not started.
Where does it say that?
It does in the zoning ordinance.
yeah, if you look at section 1725 down, that's,
The building permit shall expire if the work described in any building permit, conditional use, or variance has not begun within 180 days from date of issuance. The building permit shall expire if the work described in any building permit, conditional use, or variance has not been completed within 2 years. So there's a,
So in this, are we misleading the applicants?
it's a difference.
If I got it and I read it, I'd say, well, I got 2 years.
I guess I've always taken it as, you know, if I do work on my house in town, I always took it as the one beginning or ending, but maybe it should be clarified.
And guys, probably my recommendation would be these are going to be an appeal. They are an appeal, and you are going to be seeing them, and then the evidence will be submitted. And like Don made comment too, I mean, that's something maybe to address an appeal. Right now, we're just getting an update from the zoning administrator where everything is, so everybody knows, and that'll be something to discuss when we get it in front of you, because it'll all be in front of you here in a short period of time.
okay, thanks. Thanks, Gary, appreciate it. All right, next item on the agenda, item 20, availability of state's attorney and staff.
And
Mr. Clemish?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. This is in addressing the time I was gone, October 15th. I was out of town. I did have another staff member coming. I do apologize for nobody being here. That's my fault. Eric was going to be here. I did have communications with him by text. I believed all the answers were answered. They weren't, so I do apologize to the public. I do apologize to the commission for not having somebody here, and that was my fault. I did tell Eric he didn't have to be here after I believed the issues were solved, but they weren't. So I do apologize, just specifically like the one tonight. So I will ensure somebody's here, and I do apologize to you guys, and I do apologize to the public for not being here at the time, and that was my fault for that not happening. So I do apologize. So.
And I'd just like to say, from a commissioner, every time I've called or emailed, the state's attorney has always got back to me, usually within a few minutes, and it's been a real pleasure working with you, and thank you for everything you do for the commission and, most importantly, Yankton County. So thank you very much for that. So, anything else for Rob?
No, I just wanted to add, as with most of our jobs, there's so much more that happens behind the scenes that nobody sees. And I know Rob works really hard for the county, so thank him for that.
Of multiple trials and all kinds of stuff you're dealing with. Is it 3 murder trials we have in Yankton County?
We have an excess today. We do, Dan. So,
yeah. So it's not just your job is really a small portion of it is the commission. There's so much else with enforcing other laws. There's a lot to it. So, right. Thank you.
For being here.
Yeah.
Sure helped.
Is there anything else for you on?
No, Dan, that was it. I just was going to apologize.
Thank you.
That was.
Let's give our state's attorney a round of applause. Thank you for that. All right. Next item on the agenda, item number 21, conflict of interest for Mr. Kettering. Don, did you want to take this, or did you want state's attorney?
Well, I'm going to ask Rob to, the background is a couple months, maybe even 3 months ago, it was brought to attention that I was in a conflict of interest because I was a stockholder of YAPG and had voted on funding from the county for their support. And Rob, you want to?
Yeah, no, and too, and I know the commission's aware too, and there's a statute right on it. I'll just kind of read it. We can talk about it just a little bit, but the statute basically says that no county, municipal, or school official may participate in discussing or voting on any issue in which the official has a conflict of interest. And then it states, each official shall decide if any potential conflict of interest requires such official to be disqualified from participating in discussing or voting. So if you personally believe, like my dad is in front of you, or there's some issue, and I know we've addressed similar issues, then I need to pull myself away and decide. So part of it is a self-decision if we believe there's something that looks improper. Then it goes on to say, no matter what your thought process is, it says no such official may participate in discussing or voting on an issue if the following apply. And one is if I have a direct financial interest. So if there's an interest where I'm going to benefit from that, then I cannot vote. Or if 2/3 of the governing body decide it. So the other commissioners, I might not as a commissioner believe I have a conflict, but you might decide I have a conflict type of thing. If I'm one of the other commissioners, then you can vote on it and make that decision and bring it up in a motion and do that too. So, and I know this day and age, and you're all the same, we're all on boards, we're all heavily active in everything. I did call the Attorney General's office. I did relay specifically Don's question, their comment to me that it wasn't a conflict. And that wasn't something that he would have to, pursuant to the statute, withdraw himself. And again, guys, if it was that simple to kick you off, then you would be voting on nothing, because you're all involved and you're all active, and that's the way life works. Is typically the people that are involved are the ones involved in most everything, and that's how you guys operate, just like everybody else does too. So it's a pretty strict standard. And again, there's a little self-awareness, but the statute requires a financial interest more than it does anything else, so you'd have to see the gain. So,
and YAPG does not have stockholders, so I'm not a stockholder.
Not meaning there's no financial gain for you
No.
if there's a donation or a payment or whatever sort from the county, so.
Anything else on that, Don, or?
Well, I think everybody should know that, I think everybody on this commission has 8 to 10, 12 different organizations that they represent. I go to I can't even name them now.
You're out a lot of stuff, Don, I see.
I go to several of them, and, you know, it's a lot of time. If we couldn't vote on any of them, there wouldn't be much point in going, I guess. So, anyway.
All right, thanks, Don.
But it was a good point that you brought up.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
All right, next item on the agenda, item number 22, commercial building fee discussion. I think we've had this for the last couple months. Don, did you have anything new?
My recommendation would be that we set a base fee, and this would apply only to commercial and ag, but we set a base fee of $1,000 and then put $2 per thousand for every thousand over that. I think before in my example I showed it as $1.50, but I thought with the long time since we've changed, it could go up.
Last meeting, we discussed having just a cap on our fee structure that we have now. I think we had talked about like a $250,000 cap. And the reason I say that is we've already built the system for our online zoning. And if the concern is we don't want to go over a certain amount,
yep.
I guess I would be partial to thinking that would be better than
I'm fine with the cap. You just have to have the basis to get there.
So would you be okay with keeping the structure that we have now in place, but capping it at a certain number? So if we get a big, because your concern is a big ethanol plant or something like that, you don't want them to go somewhere else because they had to pay a big fee. If we just had it capped, we could leave our fee structure that's been in place since September as opposed to, you know, redoing it. Because we'd have to redo our whole fee structure, then we'd have to redo the whole program that's calculating all the structure. And then what are we going to do with all the building permits that have been filed between September and now? Are we going to offer those guys a refund if we break it down? I think it'd be pretty messy to do myself. So I guess, what's your thought if we put a cap on it at a number and say you pay up until you pay this amount and then you don't pay anymore? I think
well, the cap would help the big boys, but it doesn't help the small boys.
Yeah. Well, we could just hand out free building permits and have the taxpayers, you know, subsidize the office too, but that hasn't worked. I mean, if we look at zoning and planning and the expense that goes into notifications, running the office, copy machines, paper, staff, do we subsidize that office? We don't have any tax money to fix the roads. And if you look at building materials, tin, lumber, that's all gone up in the last 15 years. I think a fee structure increase, you know, helps offset some of the cost of running that department. So, and you know, we already agreed to it. It's already in place. I hate to redo that again. But I guess, any other commissioners have anything?
I'd just like to concur with your statements there, but I also just wanted to throw something in here that, you know, Don wants to give the big guys a little bigger chance, especially like you said, a ethanol plant or something, but how about some kind of a rebate system? You know, like you go to Menards, you get a rebate if, just something to think about in the future. Sure. Okay, if you want to come in with your big company, after you've been here a couple of years, then maybe we can give you some money back after you've been established and to kind of entice you to come in yet.
Well, and one thing we're overlooking too is the discretionary formula for the first year. They pay 20, 40, 60, 80. So they don't even pay their full amount of taxes for 5 years. So they're already getting that break. And then if you look at TIFs or TIDs or whatever, you know, that's 20 years of not paying their full amount of taxes. So there are other things out there. I guess this is a discussion. The other commissioners, if you want to hop in as well. I hate to take a sledgehammer to a system that's been working since September. But, we talked about this for 4 months. I guess the time to do your research was during the 4-month period, and then we voted on it, and now we want to redo what we voted on. Seems like a big step back, if you ask me, so.
I am not a supporter of a cap. I'm not a supporter of a rebate program. You start getting into the perception that you're picking and choosing winners and losers. So I don't favor adjusting it for special scenarios. I voted against the permit fees. I thought they were too high of an increase. I had looked at the other counties. I really liked what Brown County was doing at $3. It's simple. Everybody pays the same fee. It's about in the middle of the pack. Sioux County, Iowa is about that same. They're at $2.50. Lincoln, depending on which information they have in there, they have 2 sets of guidelines as far as I could see. One of their guidelines was much different than the other one, and of course Minnehaha can do whatever they want to. So if we're looking at adjusting anything, I think the only thing I would consider is going from $5 to $3.
Are we going to refund everybody who's had a building permit from September to now?
We certainly could,
Well,
if you feel that would be fair.
Well, I guess.
How many have we had? Have we had?
Well, I think it's just, yeah.
Well, it's almost zero. It's almost zero, isn't it?
Zero.
For commercial or ag, it's almost zero.
Well, we had 80 permits come in before it went up to, for everybody trying to
not
beat
on
it.
commercial and ag.
How many building permits did we have come in before the rate went up?
It was like 80.
Okay, it was 80 because everybody tried to beat it. So obviously,
That is
there's
what the
gonna be a
reports
little
show.
bit, there's gonna be a little bit of lag. Everybody's gonna get that permit beforehand. I guess it goes back to, us as a commission. We should do our research ahead of time. We talked about it for 4 months, and we made a decision, and, we have to support that decision. I've voted no on things and then supported that decision, so we made this decision. I don't know if it helps rehash in every vote that we take. Joe, you got something on that?
Oh, I'm sort of in the same camp as Sherry. I voted against this to start with, and if we're revisiting, that's fine. But I guess I'm not going to have a whole lot of input. I'm in the almost the same camp as what you said too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it was voted on, approved.
Yep. Well, I mean, we're talking about raising taxes for roads because we're broke, and then, we don't want to raise fees. So, that money comes from the same pool. If the zoning and planning board is running at a loss, which it clearly is, I mean, we look at conditional use permit or variance, the amount that we spend on notifications and recording these minutes, it's costing the county. And so part of the increase in the fees was just merely cover the cost. They hadn't been raised in 15 years. Of course there's a sticker shock. If they had been raised 3 years ago or 4 years ago or 5 years ago, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal. And that's on us as commissioners to review these things regularly and keep them updated. So I guess we voted on it. I think we need to stay the course. So. Is there any other discussion anybody'd like to have?
Well, just for the sake of putting it on record, I would vote, I would make a motion that we raise it for commercial and ag to $3 per thousand with a base fee of $1,000.
Anybody want to second that?
And with Dan's cap of $250,000.
And leave residential as it is,
Leave residential as it is.
which is what, $5?
Yes.
I'd second that.
Actually, it's on the agenda for commercial fee permit discussion. How does that work, Rob? It's on it as a discussion. Should we put it on the next meeting for voting, or what would you say?
And I think you're okay either way.
Yeah.
If you want to put it on it to be safer, because you're making a change, but I think I'm comfortable with you making changes to it. It's a discussion that could be motioned and ruled on.
Okay, so your motion, Don, was to reduce it for ag and commercial?
Ag and commercial, the rates be set at $3 per 1,000 of estimated construction cost, plus $1,000 base fee.
Plus $1,000 base fee?
Yeah.
You still seconding that with $1,000 base fee? What if somebody has $1,000 ag structure in valuation, do they still pay that $1,000 base fee? Or even a $10,000 ag structure, or a $30,000 bin with a $1,000 base structure, that's going to be higher than what we have now at $5 per thousand. Plus 50, because our base fee now is 50 plus 5 per thousand, as $1,000.
I'm just trying to cover the
be a lot
expenses.
more. Well, I mean,
I'm just trying to cover the expenses.
you're more, I guess, if that's where we want to go, but I have a motion and a second. We'll get further discussion. I guess, anybody have further discussion? I think
Mr.
this is.
Chairman, I
yeah.
think
Sure.
Matt Archer has something to say.
Yeah,
I'm
go
guessing
ahead.
it has to do with software and.
Yep, come on up.
Matt Archer,
Yep.
Deputy Director of Equalization. Just trying to clarify a few things. The software can pretty much do whatever fee schedule you was. It's just a little bit more work, but we gotta have a decision, because right now we're ready to go. This is the last thing that we're waiting on. And I will say, most ag buildings, as you guys all know, I go assess, most of them are under 100,000. Commercial, it depends, but most ag buildings are under 100,000 on the permit. It doesn't mean I have them assessed at 100,000, but usually they're, that covers most of your pole buildings, your grain handling, and so.
Yep. All right, so we have a motion and a second on ag and commercial going to $3 per thousand in valuation plus a $1,000 base fee. Am I correct on that? Okay. And you second that, right?
Well, I originally did. I guess I didn't catch
Okay.
the $1,000 base fee.
Okay.
You want $500? That's fine. I don't care.
Are you modifying your motion to 500?
I will modify it to
Okay.
500.
So I have a motion to change ag and commercial
I'll second it still.
commercial to $3 per $1,000 in valuation, plus, is it $500 base fee?
Yeah.
Okay, instead of the 50, everything else staying the same, correct? Okay. Is there further discussion? I guess I'll have further discussion. I think this is a huge mistake. We're not acting as a team. It seems like when a vote doesn't go the way we want, we'll just re-vote on it the next meeting. We're causing all kinds of confusion in the county, backpedaling on each one of these. I think it's a bad idea. This is actually going to be more expensive than we had before. If somebody has a $3 and $1,000 plus $500, I think it's going to be actually more expensive in the long run. So, are there any other further discussion?
Are you having public comment?
I think we have a motion already, so do you guys want public comment on this?
I think we should.
Okay, entertain a motion for open up public comment.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, public comment open. Come on up. State your name.
Good evening, Nancy Winandy, representing Yankton Area Progressive Growth.
And I wasn't able to follow all of the exact numbers that were being thrown out as exactly how you are modifying that. But I would suggest that as commissioners, you keep your eye on the long-term ball and not just the short-term revenues that you'll be getting out of the building permit, because the property tax that you'll be receiving from this entity that will be coming to Yankton should far outweigh in the long term what these short-term fees are. And I would encourage you to look at capping that, because some of those large industries, we as a county would be competing against other counties to bring them in. And if that's something that we can create as an informal incentive by having a building permit fee that might be comparable to the other counties or more reasonable than the other counties, might encourage them to locate here in Yankton. And I do agree that as a team, it's nice that you support each other's decisions, but there are times when a decision is made that needs to be rectified, and it's okay to come back and make a change. That's why certain decisions are appealed, that's why they're brought back, and that's why all of you are open-minded to take a look at those things and admit that sometimes things could be modified. And lastly, I just wanted to clarify, Dan, when you said that when there's a TIF that the entity is not paying all of their taxes, and that is not a correct statement. The entity is still paying all of the taxes, but it is how those taxes are allocated is what is different. But the entity is still paying the full taxes that are due on the property.
But they're not coming to the county.
It depends upon how the TIF is set up.
Okay,
and
well-
what improvements that they're paying for that
Sure.
are in the county.
Well-
But are they going directly into your general fund? It would depend upon how the TIF is set up.
Okay. Well, the biggest TIF in Yankton County, we get about $4,000 in taxes, from what I understand, off of that. Not a lot of that comes to the county. So when you have TIFs and things, like that, the county doesn't benefit a lot of times. And especially if we have road infrastructure and other things that are on the county, we still have all those expenses, and we're not getting the tax revenue from those for 20
I would be more
years.
than happy to come back and have a discussion specifically on the TIFs, and if there's anyone in general that you want to dig deeper
Sure.
into,
Sure.
I would be more than happy to do that. I do think it takes away from this discussion if we kind of get into
Sure.
a battle over
Sure.
exactly how
Well-
the TIF funds are allocated. I just wanted to clarify for all those people who are paying all of that property tax, I just want to clarify that they are still paying that.
But not to the county.
It depends upon how the
Well,
TIF is written.
Sure, sure.
So
they
you
could
might be referencing
well,
just one
sure,
specific TIF,
sure.
but we have in the city of Yankton, there are, I think, 8 or 9 TIFs that are in play right now, and all of them might have different rules in how that TIF was set up. But everyone is still paying all of those taxes.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak on this? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice? All right. Closed public comment. All right, we still had a motion and a second. Motion for ag and commercial value, correct me if I'm wrong, $3 per $1,000 in valuation, plus a $500, what was that, a fee?
Base fee.
Base fee. Base fee. All right, and Joe, you second that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Was there a cap?
There was a cap on that.
Not that I've heard of.
Yeah.
What was the cap?
$250, what you suggested.
$250?
1,000.
$250,000. All right. I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
No.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
No.
Dan.
No. Motion failed. All right. All right, anything else on that? All right, moving on.
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to mention, it's always referenced about this ethanol plant. Sounds like a great idea. I've been in pipeline business for 33 decades. They need natural gas to fuel it. The nearest connection is out by the coffee cup by the interstate. And I'm told that it'll cost $7 million per mile to make a connection. That's what, 35, 40 miles times 7 million. Now, I hope the county doesn't have to foot that bill like they did the road out by Napa Junction.
Thanks, Gary. Next item on
I
the...
gotta respond to that. If, I don't know where you got your information, but it's not even close.
Well, I got it. I give it to you right
All
here.
right.
I concur with Don.
Can we
Depends
move
on how
on?
big a pipeline you're gonna build too.
All right, thank you,
So,
guys.
I would like to make a motion. I move to change the fee that we chose of $5 to $3.
Flat, no,
Flat fee, just as it's set up right now in the system, just change it from 5 to 3. It gets us in line with the middle of the pack. No caps, just 5 to 3,
Is there any minimum fee?
just as it is right now,
So $50?
which is the $50. So it's exact same structure, exactly how it's in the program, 5 to 3.
No ag or commercial
No
breakout?
difference, everybody, we treat the same.
$3 per thousand.
Well, you aren't, are you gonna include rural residences?
Everybody's the same, whether you're building a shack or a mansion or an ethanol plant or whatever, everybody's $3.
I think we should table this. I think this is too big and too hastily done. All of a sudden, everybody wants to change it. Now we want to change it again.
All right, and you
Next meeting, we're going to change it again.
you want a $50 fee like it's set up now?
Yes,
Well, we got it.
not
Okay.
changing that.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
No.
Joe,
yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan.
No. Motion pass. All right. Next item on the agenda, item number 23, amend no-through trucks resolution. Rob, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I don't want to, but I will. I was asked if we could have a $2,500 fine on no-through trucks, and we cannot. And that was incorrect. The most we can have is $500, which is a Class 2 misdemeanor, 30 days in jail, or a $500 fine, or both. That's the answer. So we do need to amend those no-through truck ordinances and to cap them at 500. So I do apologize. I did state we could do that, but we cannot. So
Should we
I do
just amend
apologize.
that resolution then, and could we vote on that?
Yep,
or-
you got to vote on it, and then too, Dan, I'll get it to you tomorrow, because I do know Mr. Vlakas is here, and to get that going and stuff too, he did bring that to my attention and remind me it's a Class 2 misdemeanor that we need to
Okay.
follow regarding the ordinance. So I do apologize, but I will have that done and completed if the commission approves that. I will have that done by tomorrow to have it
Okay.
ready to go.
All right, does anybody care to speak on this topic? Now would be the time to do so. All right, seeing or hearing none, I'll close the public comment. Back to the board, so I guess we have to amend the resolution from $2,500 to $500 to be in compliance.
Do we need to name the number of the resolution or just change the fine?
Just change the fine.
Okay.
And we have two of them. I think there's just two. Is that right? If you just make the motion that all no-through truck resolutions.
All no-through.
Are to be with a $500 fine, I can handle the resolution. All right, I can handle it.
Okay.
Entertain a motion.
Move to change all no-through truck resolutions from $2,500 fine to $500.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Don,
Yes.
Gary,
No.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes, motion pass. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 24, CAFO moratorium. Mr. Swenson, or Commissioner Swenson, you want to take this one?
Yeah, thank you. Back when the three commissioners weren't here. There was 3 different commissioners that were not reelected. July the 5th, 2017 was the first, I call it the smoking gun date for the CAFO's coming into Yankton County. I sent, at that time, Don Kettering was chairman, I sent a certified return receipt letter to him. I sent a certified receipt letter to Rob Flemish, and I sent one to Todd Woods requesting a cooling down period, a change of venue, because this was such a hot topic. I had neighbors out there that I've known all my life. I grew up by Mission Hill. My father was there, my grandfather. I know all these people out here. I know the ones that want the CAFOs, I know the people that don't want them. I asked for a cooling down period so we could get all the details worked out so that we wouldn't have what's going on right now. Somebody wants this, somebody wants a well, somebody wants to come back and renegotiate. Somebody's not clear on it. Somebody's not here like the state's attorney so they can answer questions. If it would have been all set up the right way the first time, we wouldn't be in this situation. We wouldn't have angry neighbors. We wouldn't have people getting chased around, people building without permits, people thumbing their nose at us, people coming in here that own half the CAFOs giving us a Hitler salute because they didn't get their way. And I guess I don't have to name any names to do that, but I think it's uncalled for. One of the farmers told me he was ready to go over and beat the hell out of another one because he said because I had to read about the CAFO that's going to be across the road from me, and I've farmed next to the guy for 30 years. He didn't have the guts to come over and say, gee, I'm going to build a CAFO, what do you think? And, you know, would it be okay? But no, he reads about it in the newspaper. That's why I wanted to bring this up for discussion. I wanted to have some input from it because it was done all incorrectly, and I tried my best. This place was packed. The hallway was packed. And it was not a place that it should have been done on July the 5th, 2017. But that's too late now. But now look what we've got. A big mess. Now if there's somebody who'd like to add some to this public comment, pro, con, whatever. But it wasn't done right. We can't go back.
All right, anybody from the audience care to make a public comment on this? Now would be the time to do so. Come on up, sir. State your name for the record and try to give you 3 minutes. I haven't been good at timing tonight, so welcome, sir.
My name's Bob Gleick, and I'm probably not going to make any friends here. We've been through this for the whole year. I'm not going to comment on the 4 that's in litigation. That's in the past. The new board came in, you changed the zoning ordinance.
What did we change?
Well, for example, the number representation of like a pig from, I think the old zoning ordinance said you could have like 100 pigs compared to a cow.
What section was changed, Bob?
From what I understand, you guys
None were.
made the animal unit to 1.
No.
But
It's been
anyway,
like that
well,
since 2003, Bob.
Besides, what I want
Sure.
to say is, you guys done your due diligence as representatives. People talked to you, you did what they said they wanted to do. The biggest problem we had was we didn't have representation in the zoning office due to the absence of a zoning office. You have them now. You have your zoning ordinance, you have a book and a statute you're gonna go with. Follow it. See where it goes. We need to amend it, amend it. Don't just throw it out the window like saying we're gonna put a moratorium on it. What you do when you put a moratorium on them is you're telling every other farmer in this county that because of this incident down here, you don't know what your plans are. You can't go to your banker and set for future development. You can't tell your children you've got a future on the farm because they don't know. And this, for example, I want to go back to 2002, 2004, when the big issue then was cattle feedlots. The cattle feedlot was the devil at that time. feelings are hot, just like they are now. When it's all said and done, and Mr. Gary used to have a little display up by his office. We now have more CFO feedlots because we raised the requirements of what they have for cost and all that stuff. It's good. You got to do this. You got for X amount of number. That's cost. They did it. We got more of them. I haven't heard of any complaints, and correct me if I'm wrong, about the cattle industry since then. Now we're doing here 15 years later, people are looking to develop into our county, and we're doing it on pigs. You've got your tools in place. We don't need a moratorium. Otherwise, people are going to say, well, we'll come back to Yankton County in 15 years and see if they figured out what they want to do. Because if you don't let your own homegrown industry develop and grow, they'll be gone. The small farmer, and this is a quote from the newspaper, 2017, South Dakota lost 212 farms, whether through death, bankruptcy, whatever. And every time one of those little farmers disappear, that land goes up for sale, and the guy with the money that you're scared of coming in this town comes in, buys it up. The first thing he hires is a bulldozer. So all your setbacks are gone because there's no more structure that have to be so far away from and all that stuff.
Thank you.
Leave the system alone. Let's work it out first for a year.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else care to speak? Now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. All right, go ahead and close public comment. Gary, what were you, did you want a motion on this, or what were you having a discussion?
No, I don't want to vote on it.
Okay.
Because we don't, I just wanted some public comment about it and to bring
Okay.
up some of the things that I tried to do.
Okay, thanks, Gary. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 25, public comment. Yeah, lucky.
Craig wants to be taken off, so it's just right.
Craig, you don't want to be on here? All right, Mr. Epp, welcome.
Ray up. I want to touch on the well monitor. I feel that was a very unfortunate circumstance there. We have a young farmer with a young family looking to the future. I think in future, you folks really need to think about the situation. That was a 2,400 head nursery, and you added $6,000 of well monitoring on a situation that there was no need for. How that may affect his future in farming, time will tell. We're in some tough times right now. $6,000 goes a long ways. We all know that. There are situations where well monitors are needed. It's in the ordinances. This was not one of them.
Where is it at in the ordinance that talks about groundwater monitoring wells?
This is a public comment.
Well, I'm asking.
Isn't it when you exceed into the DNR side of things?
If you could provide me with that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Transparency.
Anybody else care to make a public comment? Now would be the time to do so. All right, thanks. I'll go ahead and close public comment. All right, next item on the agenda, item number 26, Commissioner updates. Joe, do you have anything?
I do not.
Sherry?
Yeah, for some reason I got a big list. I think I already mentioned November this month, we're going to begin our human resource review that we approved probably 2 months ago. Don and I have been working with District 3 and Clark Engineering about a FEMA mitigation grant application for Stone Church, that road and bridge. So that is moving along. I did get a call from a citizen about the planning and zoning fee changes that we have made. Her concern was that there are folks out there who think we have changed the ordinances about lot sizes and where they can and can't build things versus just changing the fees associated with them. So she suggested that someone write an article to the paper that shows the fee changes that we have made and to make the statement that nothing in the ordinances has changed. So I'm mentioning that here. Tomorrow we have a meeting for, what are we calling it?
Strategic planning, and we're working on the mission statement for the county.
Okay, and that's at 9:30?
9:30, yep.
Okay, and then November 11th, I just wanted to mention our offices are closed. November 20th, we have an 8-county meeting over in Tyndall that there probably will be a quorum at. And then this Saturday at 2 p.m., November 9th, Quality of Life has invited, I think, all of us to go view a video. I don't know if we're all going to be there, but if we think there might.
Quorum announcement for that.
We should probably have a quorum announcement for Saturday, November 9th at the center, correct? Okay, just in case 5 of us show up and, you know, that looks bad. The ambulance, at one time, we had kind of kicked around the idea of doing a task force for ambulance to see where we're at, what we can improve and stuff. And I guess at the next meeting, I will probably put that on the agenda to discuss if we want to go down that path and if we need to advertise for volunteers for that. So that'll be the next thing. And then lastly, I did want to touch base on the Mission Hill Township vote that occurred last Tuesday. Tough situation. They had a vote, and there were some issues with folks appearing, and Mr. Clemish wrote a very good article that was released to the paper. I guess my whole deal of mentioning this is, I mean, they're good people, and an unfortunate thing happened. And my concern is I don't want that same thing to happen to some other township. So I did call the South Dakota Association of Towns and Townships. They have nothing available to townships that walk them through what provisional ballots are and things. My next call was the Secretary of State's office. They have nothing for townships because they said it is so rare that an election like this happens. Some of the people didn't even know they had elections like this. But what they did promise me in 2 or 3 weeks that they would look at the statutes around it, put together some kind of a document to post on their website for any township across the state as a reference if they're ever in this situation. So always, when you have something bad happens, you always try and make sure, what are we going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again? So I just did want to close the circle on that. And I know the township themselves are figuring out what their next step is, and I'm certainly not going to speak for them tonight, but just good people, not a good situation. That's it.
Gary, Don, do you have anything for updates?
The only thing I would point out in addition to the township meeting is that I've been to 3 meetings now that the school opt-out has been discussed. And I would really encourage everybody to either get to one of the opt-out discussions or go to the internet. You can go to the Yankton School District and pull up an opt-out, and you'll get the same presentation that you get elsewhere. But that's coming up, and right after the first of the year, there'll be a vote on that.
Thanks, Don. Gary, did you have anything?
I just want to tell you that I'm still communicating with Washington, D.C. after I went out there in September. I'm getting feedback all the time. My request was that we needed 4 new bridges on the James River in Yankton County, and they are working on it. And like I said, I'm going to keep holding their feet to the fire. So just want to let you know that I'm still communicating directly with D.C.
Thanks, Gary. Only thing I have is on November 11th, the Veterans of Foreign War, we're actually going to host a retreat ceremony at the local monument right out here. It's the first time that's happened, weather permitting at 5. We're going to bring the flag down. So if anybody wants to be there and see it, it's kind of a neat thing. So, all right. Did you have?
Just one more thing. Monday, November 11th, all veterans, Hy-Vee, grocery store, free breakfast. That's been going on for quite a few years. Thanks. So
okay.
It's not just the Yankton store. I think there's like 500 Hy-Vee stores that provide a free breakfast on November 11th for all veterans.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item number 27, executive session pursuant to for personnel pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, subparagraph 1, and an executive session pursuant to litigation, South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, paragraph 3. Entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Second. Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, everybody, for attending. All right, entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Which one? Second.
Don, we'll give it to Don this time. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. We're back into regular session. Items for next meeting. One of the items we're going to have is code of conduct for commissioners. As elected officials, we all have to, we should be held to a higher standard, so we're going to talk about code of conduct for commissioners. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say on this?
Yeah, I would address what we post on social media, interviews, whatever reflects on all of us, and especially on social media. You can post anything personal we want, but we keep county business to county web pages and county forms of communication.
Sherry, do you have anything?
And what is said in executive session is legally obligated to stay in executive session.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. All right. Thank you, everybody.